I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. All directors are present. Today is December 11th, 2024. We're meeting at 5 p.m. at the Bolinas Fire House. First thing on the agenda is to have the oaths of office for the elected directors, Walker and Kevin McElroy. And I think it's probably easiest if I simply read to you the oath, and then at the end you say I do or I will or something like that, okay?
And then you're married.
It sounds like it, but okay. So do you, Kirsten Walker and Kevin McElroy, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter?
I do.
I do. And now pronounce you director in district. Very good.
We sign.
I think that actually I have to sign you, so I'll do it at the end of the meeting. That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
re-upping and being with us. Both very valuable additions. Okay, I think I've already said the roll is called and we're all here. This is a time for community expression, an opportunity for members of the audience, either on Zoom or in person, to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which we have no action can be taken. However, we're willing to entertain a relatively brief discussion on any subject you wish to bring up. Is there anybody that has a community expression item? None appearing, I'll move on to the next matter. We can consider amending the order of items in the agenda. Is there any matter that you know, Georgia, that we should readjust?
Yeah, if we could bring item 3, Leah Kostelnik is here to present. So if we could move that to the top, and then I believe Sherry is also in the audience. So after he's done, maybe we could move her item up too. That would be the parking committee. That would be item.
Tina has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry. You want to
Hang on a second, Tina, I'll be right with you. I'm not seeing
Oh, sorry, it's number 6.
number 6. Okay, so why don't we do that? We'll advance number 3 and number 6. Yes, Tina? You might be on mute,
She is on
or
mute.
you might not be hearing me at
No,
all.
she's on mute.
Or maybe she
Or maybe
accidentally
you didn't
raised
know
her
your
hand.
was up.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
So, is number 6 the discussion of the Wharf Road repair?
No,
I know Sherry's really involved in the parking committee, but we've got 3 Road neighbors on here to talk about the Wharf Road.
Yeah,
Including Sherry.
I'm sorry, but that
I-
that item is
Slate.
just embedded in my
Thank you.
manager report. I don't have much to report out on it. But they could, when we could move that single item out. And
Right,
but it's
but-
not,
It's on
I
the
don't want to make
agenda.
them sit through the entire manager's report to discuss that one item.
Oh, okay, so why don't
It's on the agenda. I'm hoping.
yeah,
We open that back.
well, if we're going to advance the resident permit parking plan committee, which is item 6, up to the top of the agenda right after item 3, then we can take up those matters that Tina and Sherry would like to discuss.
Okay.
At that time, that way they don't have to sit through the rest of it, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure, you bet. Okay, so With that, I'm going to go on in the agenda to under discussion items. And we've advanced item 3. Support for immigrant families presented by the school district superintendent, Leo Castelnick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hi. Hi,
I think I'll move back because I can see you there.
hide in the back row.
So I can respond in other ways, but my plan was just to tell you what we as a school district, first of all, I'm Leo Costello, superintendent of the Winston Union School District, so 2 campuses. What we're doing to support families in response to the announced Trump administration deportation and possibly denaturalization policies. So I'll just give you a rundown of what's happening at the school level, and that also kind of involves necessarily what's happening at the county level. So a bit of background. In 2018, after the last round of I guess I would say concerted deportation policy action, the state of California codified an AB 699. So again, this is in 2018. Basically what we think of as sanctuary policies. So it codified that public agencies may not cooperate with immigration, customs, and enforcement activities. So, what does that mean practically? In the past, if someone came with, say, an administrative warrant asking for information about a family or a student that could be school district could choose to cooperate with that request. Now that's off the table. We may not choose to cooperate with that request. It's against the law. So these kinds of information requests need to go through our regular FERPA process. And the only remedy for that would be a judicial one that they present. So that's kind of what lack of cooperation means in practical terms, is that unless we are compelled to cooperate with ICE in response to a judicial warrant or a declaration of exigent circumstances, we are not allowed to cooperate. And what it really means is that for practical purposes, we can't disregard sanctuaries for students, but not for adults. So what does that look like in terms of how we're able to support families? There are a few different things that we've already done, some other things that are being planned. The school board on next Tuesday at their meeting will be reviewing board policy 5143.13. And that's a CSBA, California School Boards Association written policy in line with AB 699. It's called Response to Immigration Enforcement. It reviews the school's legal requirements for non-cooperation. And it has attached to it administrative regulations that lay out the steps that we would take if immigration and customs enforcement officers visit the school site. So we're reviewing that at the December board meeting. I've been working with other superintendents in the county to coordinate kind of our response. So I think that most of the school districts in Marin County will be reviewing those policies at the December meetings, which will happen between December 15th and December 23rd. And we intend to follow that up with board resolutions to present to school boards across the county in January meeting for approval. So one thing that you might consider if as a board you're thinking of doing some other sort of a resolution of support, is that as soon as I get that draft language, I can forward it on to Georgia for your consideration. And so those resolutions should be on the board agenda for approval in the instance at our regular January meeting. In terms of what happens practically, we have a district English learners advisory committee, and many families who worry that they could be impacted by deportation policies also come to those meetings. And so we are giving information about legal rights, know your rights. How does this work? How can it not work? So there's several pages of information that have been compiled by the Marin County Public Defender's Office, by national, nationwide immigration rights groups, and by the Canal Alliance. And so we're making sure that any family who is interested has that information in hand. We've also made sure that families have what are called red cards. Red cards are simple English and Spanish declarations of individuals' Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, regardless of citizenship. The residency or Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, basically what it means is you have a card. If I shows up at your house and the card says, I don't want to talk to you, and I won't. I need the Fifth Amendment, and you cannot come in my house. Under the Fourth. In addition to that, we have scheduled trainings, the Know Your Rights training through the Public Defender's Office and the Canal Alliance. That will happen in Bolinas at the Casada down at the Bolinas campus on January 17th. That's a Friday from 6 to 7:30. We'll have food and childcare, and everybody is invited. At that meeting, legal counsel will present Know Your Rights training in Spanish. And included in that training will be some other documents that we are also trying to preview for families, namely a template for an emergency plan that lists people and contacts and agencies should deportation proceedings affect any adults in the family. And then secondly, another legal document that essentially delegates custody of minors to individuals who remain should the adult members of the family be taken into custody. In addition to that we also encouraged and had many staff participate in a legal training for school employees that happened online last night. It was about an 1.5-hour training, reviewing all of this information and what we can do, what we are forbidden from doing, and how all of this stuff works. So many of our staff, including me, participated in that last night. Also, just in practical terms, we know that many of our students are experiencing a lot of distress and anxiety related to possible enforcement actions. First of all, nothing can happen before January 20th. Families know that. But secondly, Grace and other school staff, trusted individuals, we've let families know that we're available to speak with students and families to support their emotional health related to anxiety and distress. There are a few other things that are upcoming that families who might be affected and everybody else can take part in. The Canal Alliance and Public Defender's Office is going to launch a WhatsApp channel that you can join. That will give real-time alerts to any ICE enforcement actions in the county, and will also be a repository of up-to-date documentation and information related to these policies, which we expect to evolve. We also expect some evolution in how the Trump administration decides to conduct any enforcement operations that they might bring to Marin County. So that'll be an important real-time information source for anyone who is interested. The Canal Alliance also provides, on request, a legal referral list. We recommend to families that, since their conditions can be really individualized, that they contact the Canal Alliance for a consultation, a free legal consultation that will help them orient themselves to be prepared for enforcement action. Their capacity is just about filled, and so if they're unable to have that consultation with families, they'll provide a referral list of legal counsel that has been vetted that won't take advantage of written law. And that's it.
All right, well, Jenny asked us to put this on the agenda, and the agenda item is support for immigrant families, and then obviously the presentation you made. So I guess I'm turning to the board to ask what we might do as a BPUD board to be supportive of this, given the nature of the language, which is direct, of the statute, which is directed to schools in particular.
I have a question, Leo. Has it come up? I mean, I think that through this school, we've got good communication with the families, and there's so many people who are not here with their families that are in town. And I would imagine the land trust has some communication with some of those people, but I'm wondering if throughout this series of conversations, there is any way come up to spread the word even more widely through the community of potentially undocumented people that are here in Bolinas. Do you know anything about that?
Well, what we're planning on doing is, I just, scheduled the January 17th training with the Public Defender's Office,
Mhm.
yesterday or the day before. So this is fresh news. They're developing a flyer, and when they have their flyer ready, they'll send it out. And we'll post it in the hearsay, put it on bulletin boards, get it to the land trust, look for any electronic means,
I'm
physical
wondering,
means to distribute it. That's for the January 17th training.
yeah, that's awesome. Any way that local employers may be contacted directly to pass word to their employees? Like,
Sure there are.
I mean,
I haven't got that far.
yeah, no, I'm not saying you should have, I'm brainstorming here, and that may be a pretty direct and relatively simple way, because I don't think there's gonna be that many employers. To say, hey, make sure everybody that you're in contact with knows about those and spread the word.
And this would be really the third local training.
Mhm.
I want to say December 15th, and there's one in December and there's one in January, and we have gotten that, those flyers out to parents. The first one is in Point Reyes, the second one is in Tamales. So we've got, it's the same training, but they're bringing here to Bolinas, and so we've got that word up the fingers on the December 17th. Once we get all three dates and flyers, you know, which I expect before December 15th. I think I physically bring those flyers to the businesses.
Mhm.
But the deal is wrong partner, we need to get electronic.
I'll help.
In touch with them, yeah.
Word up. Go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, I was going to say, a lot of the families here are related to families or work with what goes on in Point Reyes, and they have a really strong community there. And one of our community members, Ed Shera, has worked with them closely, and he was very active when there was the Border Angels were collecting things to go down the border. I worked with that group and went down with them, and he was very good about getting communication to go back and forth. So I would imagine he would be a really good conduit for collecting people who need to know these
Mhm.
things.
I agree.
Well, let me go down the road and ask the directors then how they feel about the request for support. I think that politically and personally, we're all in favor of doing what we could, but I'm not sure what the VPUD as an agency can do. I'll start with you, Kevin. What do you think?
Yeah, also not sure what we can do. I feel sort of helpless, but I deeply appreciate the school as a sort of nucleus of the town for a lot of its families. So this is just another example of stepping up and providing support and, you know, ways beyond just educating our kids. So really keeping the health of our families in mind in our town. So I'm very grateful. But I'm not sure what BPUD can do about it. Feel a little helpless.
Yeah, I mean, I might ask the question, do you have any sense of what you think we could be doing? I know you also said you were gonna be, I think you said, working on some resolution language that would be happy to share with us.
Certainly, I think, if you, the board, were interested in, showing an alliance, with families who might be affected by these policies, the resolution is a good way to signal, to show that. And, so again, I expect draft language, if something like that, there is a draft out there circulating that I haven't seen yet, I can share that with Georgia. And then we can do that, what we do.
So support in the form of a resolution, saying,
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I certainly, I would support that as well.
okay,
Yeah, like Heather and I kind of feel helpless, like what else can we do? Put like messaging services on our water meters or something. I definitely support it and would be happy to do a resolution if it works.
okay.
And I just want to also say, beyond my question, thank you for the work that you're doing in spearheading this. It's obviously very complicated, highly charged, and so. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of a heavy subject, but
Yeah.
it seems like you've really kind of been able to understand it and have a plan, which I appreciate.
That is true, and, you know, that this is, something that, we superintendents started talking with each other about early in the Marin County Office of Education is bringing its organizational chops, to, we've got some economy to scale of it. No one has been left on their own,
Mhm.
which is good. So, it's not as though, you as a board should feel like you have to pick up and fill in a gap. Because there are concerted efforts. And, I'll certainly let you know. If we need some additional support of any kind.
What we can do, what do you say, Grace? What,
The only thing that I'm wondering is that since there are these community informational meetings going on, Tamales Point Reyes, which can be challenging for people who have difficulty with transportation to get to. I'm wondering if there's any kind of billboardy publicity things that we could help with. I mean, honestly, and I know this is a fraught subject, I'm kind of wondering about the signage at the stop sign. Like, community informational meeting, blah, 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 in Spanish and English. So, I think that we've got good communication with the families from the school, but there's plenty of people here who don't have families, who need to know this information, and I'm wondering how to make sure if there's anything we can do to help with the outreach towards those folks. Because in my imagination, that community is talking to each other, and I have no idea if that's true or not. Like people who are here individually working down at Star Route without their families here, are they getting the info? I have no idea, which is embarrassing, but it's true. So I'm wondering if there is a signage element to it for people who are not on Nextdoor, because Nextdoor is in English. People who are not looking at JohnStar because all those notices are up in English. They're not reading the Hersey because it's in English. Maybe there's some way that we can put a brief, simple Spanish informational piece up on that board down at the stop sign. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm not sure that it would be our role to put up such a sign. I would be very supportive of it, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
but I mean, I would like to see a sign go up somewhere. I don't know that our particular piece of property is the place to do it.
well, why don't we do this? Why don't we put on our next agenda for action a resolution to support the schools district's efforts to comply with AB 699, as well as any other efforts it makes to insulate these people from being harassed, or I don't know, we'll have to create some creative language on a resolution, but as supportive as we can be. And put that on our agenda for passage at the next meeting. What do you think about that, everybody?
It sounds like Leo has some draft language in the works.
For a resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can work at that draft.
Yeah, so could you provide that to Georgia and then we'll get it, all right, George, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yep, yeah, I already have.
Yeah.
Tina has something to say.
Yeah, there were a couple of comments.
Okay.
I love the signage idea. This is Amelia Stratton. It shows that these families matter, especially now that the PO sign has been moved down to the board fence.
It could go on the board fence. That's not a bad spot, actually. Everybody sees it there.
Yeah.
What is the,
The board.
The board fence down by the farm stand.
what about there's a fence at the little auto part at the school, is there options to post things on that? There's a chalkboard or something on.
Mhm.
All right, well, I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but I think we know what we want to do. Go ahead.
Sounds great. I know you got a lot that gets on your agenda and I don't want to overdo. But if it was just an update, an item that said update on support for families regarding immigration on the agenda, which would give people a chance to know it's there, so it's not just a one and done thing, so that there's ongoing opportunity for people to come and be here and have a space where they can talk about it if they're not connected with the school. To find out what's going on, so that there's an update. What do you think, is that appropriate?
Maybe you could come in under community expression, because I'm not sure if we have a particular action item on our agenda to basically, other than passing a resolution, I'm not sure what action we can take, but we surely can entertain a discussion like the one we're having right now.
Just an update, so that people know that that's the time to do it.
I think it'd be really nice to have it at the downtown meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
downtown meeting should,
Yeah.
and there should be translators present. I don't know if they usually have a
They have
translator.
translation and headphones. And
Okay,
Good.
yeah, that seems like
I
a
mean,
good
this is-
spot
I
for it,
agree.
honestly.
This is your strongest forum, just based
Mhm.
on who I've observed in the last few years, other than when we had the vote for the BCLT housing, I don't know that we have provide that much exposure
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
to people that I can.
Based on this meeting,
Yeah,
Those people that we have.
yeah.
End road here.
Well, I think, yeah, you get probably more exposure on that subject at that community meeting. All right, well, why don't we do that? We'll put it on our agenda for action to pass a resolution. You'll provide Georgia with a draft, and George, you put something together, and we'll do whatever we can as a utility district board to be supportive of the basic philosophy behind all of this, okay?
I mean, I would say one more comment. I think you're lucky to have a county Office of Education that's been thinking about this for many years, and there's a state resolution to go by, but as a water district, I haven't heard of other similar paths. I mean, I don't know the immigration status of our employees or our board members, but I imagine there are other special districts, other water districts around that are have to think seriously about this stuff, but maybe there's a solidarity with other water districts that we could support.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, we can look into that and find out if there is something that other special districts are doing to,
So just sharing a resolution,
Yeah.
and once it comes to us and it's passed.
yeah,
share
if they,
that.
we pass this, then we're interested in doing the same. something like that, yeah. All right,
honestly, I-
unless there's anything more on the subject, I'll go on to the next item then.
I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Is the January 17th training, will that be recorded?
No.
Okay, so maybe one of us should just attend and we can just give like a briefing at the next meeting or something.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Excuse myself.
Thanks, Leo.
Go home, have dinner.
Yeah.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
It's, when it would be appropriate, but I do want this question of the signage, and now our signage, obviously, we gap. I think it would be a great opportunity to put something, just beep on it. And if you need information, come to our website, because I don't know if people know about it. And then that way people can check on our water usage, you know, are there any major topics of discussion here?
Sort of like an informational,
Yeah, like
sign.
BPUD, you know, go to BPUD.org.
uh-huh,
And you could just say, these are the topics, because it's a void and it sounds like it's coming up a lot and people are going to say, hey, could we put our signage up there because it's down?
yeah,
Why not take the opportunity to put our own sign up there? We can help direct people to this information, it could be in Spanish and in English.
all right, well, let's,
Well, I think we promised that location to the eucalyptus project. You're talking about the empty on the corner of Main
I wasn't
Street.
here for that,
Okay.
but,
Uh,
I mean, really quick, initial suggestion when we have a
Sure.
water moratorium.
I mean, something, yeah,
And then
something is better than that.
I would like to continue to own that for,
yeah,
I think we promised it to.
I don't mind swapping it out
Yeah.
if that's what's been proposed for a, you know, specific period of time. But then I think we could just have a sign that would go back up to redirect people to
Yeah.
the
I think we
Good idea.
logo, website,
Spanish, English,
address.
go
Yeah.
down here for, you know, up to date.
it's like an informational sign, yeah.
George's,
What do you think about
George's
that?
personal cell phone number.
Yes. Does anybody mind if I turn on the lights? I'm finding it's like super dark over here.
No, so much.
Oh, yeah, well, I think it probably will make it, it might make you feel like you're less in like the limelight if all of the lights are on.
Oh,
Is that okay?
yeah, sure.
Get surgery.
So Georgia, what do you think about the idea of just putting sort of an informational?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea that you guys, there's just a sign that is like a placeholder there.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
if there's a reason to have something else in its place, then it can come down and that's good.
okay. Well, there you go. We'll do that. What are we listening to?
I think
I
it's
think the-
radio back here.
Maybe the fire radio.
Fire just, oh, yeah.
Somebody's
Um,
waiting.
All right, then I'm
Oh,
going to, then advance item 6.
Yeah, well, it's letting people in.
Next item on our agenda. Resident permit parking plan committee. And this can include a discussion of the specific matters concerning Wharf Road. As well as the general parking plan, so. How do you want to do this? Do you want to?
Sherry's here to present on it, and there is a map that is featured in your board books. I think that Kirsten, you'd requested this map come forward, so but I would just, yeah, defer to Sherry here to present on it.
Just have one technical question.
Um,
When something like this comes up that we're talking about,
Mhm.
can we put it up on the screen so those people who are calling in are looking at the same thing we're looking at?
Yes,
Is that something Bill might be able to do now?
yeah, I mean, the way we, yeah, basically we have all of this material on the website. But if Belle, you, I'm not sure if you're listening to us, but if you could pull the map and show it.
Do a screen share?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, thank you.
What I was hoping we could do first is talk about the item, Kirsten, that you talked about last month about the seawall on Wharf Road. That's why Amelia and Tina, I believe, are here. And I know they know about the permit parking and, you know, this resolution because we've talked about it and they've seen the materials. So could we maybe go with that first and then do the parking permit report, which was kind of brief, actually.
Sure. I mean, as I said, I don't really have much to report. I will just bring up, if you guys don't mind, that slide, just so I remember everything I wanted to say regarding this
Well,
item.
while you're pulling it up, let me just say Sherry and Amelia and Tina, I don't know if anybody else, if Eric is from Wharf Road, but I had just requested that it be a topic of discussion. I don't personally have an update. You know, it sounds like Georgia may have a little bit of an update, but what I'd like to do is continue to give it some exposure so that we can keep some engagement with the county to do something and why we feel it's so important, because I kind of feel like it's out of sight and out of mind at this period, except for those of us who live on Wharf Road and have to deal with the parking and the down to one lane. And also, we just had PG&E put in a new transformer on my property with no prior notice. Because the College of Marin is requiring more power. So the good news is Wharf Road now has more power. But I know it was expressed some concern about the size and the weight load of those trucks being there. And knowing that we have, you know, some caverns being developed and sinking holes in Wharf Road. And I just don't know that somebody like the PG&E utilities people would be aware of the concern of truckloads like that bearing down on the road, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, presumably if they're burying lines, then they have to get permits from the county.
They're not bearing.
But if they're not burying lines, I don't really know what the permit requirements would be and how they would engage with the county around, you know, that they're doing that work.
The PG.
Yeah, PG.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about permits for PG. It was truckload, the weight of the load of the trucks that were there installing a transformer on the pole. Expressed to me as a issue of concern.
Yeah.
I'm just raising.
No, I'm just saying that if, you know, I would doubt that, I'm saying if they were digging or something like that, they would get into the county fold, but if they're not, I don't think that the county would necessarily even be aware that they were
I see.
updating a transformer or anything. So yeah, I can just give a brief update, just, you know, because this situation was quite complicated and I don't know, those of you who are in attendance, if you heard the previous updates, which I didn't really go over here, but briefly, there was a planned seawall repair, which was more extensive and was going to be reliant on FEMA funding. That FEMA funding fell through, and so the county has a project that is much kind of pared down in scope. That's really to kind of fill that single sinkhole. So I had a quarterly meeting with Rodoni this last week, and I asked him about it. And unfortunately, you know, basically the people that I talked to about this don't really know. I mean, I think everyone understands that it's still a concern, but basically he had no, you know, kind of like solid updates that would allow me to convey any information at this meeting. And then I also reached out to the county engineer, who is, you know, responsible for the original seawall repair project and now this smaller fill project. And basically, they gave me an update that essentially this is still on their docket. The engineering plans have not been solidified for that smaller scope project, but as soon as they are, then that project will go out to bid. I don't know, they didn't tell me, they said they were, you know, I asked them when it would specifically be scheduled. They said it's not scheduled yet and they won't have a schedule until the engineering plans are solidified and it goes out to bid, that essentially they will, you know, do a push to communicate to the community and BPUD when that project is underway. They presumed that once that bid is awarded, it will still be 4 weeks out before the work begins. And so they envision that they would be communicating to us and the community, hey, 4 weeks from now, that work will be in. I don't know from now. Obviously, the important point is when is from now, and there's no information on that. But it is work that the county is actively pursuing. So this is kind of a little bit out of order now, but basically just briefly, I mean, one of the main points I was trying to convey to Rodoni is that, you know, now because of the beach closure, I have these weekly meetings with Chris Chu at CDA, and that's very helpful. DPW is an entirely different, animal in the county, and it would be really helpful to have a similar connection with somebody so that I can, just really, I think it kind of goes two ways, where they can make me aware of things that are going on when we want to do things that involve potentially county roads, then, I have that conduit there. So that's something, I think that, and I appreciate Rodoni's, understanding that it makes, that relationship is only going to be really useful if it's somebody who is really kind of embedded and high enough up that they can affect some change. And so it wasn't clear who that person is, but hopefully I will have a contact at DPW within the next couple of weeks, and can have regular meetings with that person. So yeah, sorry, it's not like a very satisfying update. I understand, and I continue to, just communicate with the folks that I do know that, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of movement.
We do get a need for process. I know people are wanting to reach out and express their individual concerns, particularly this group on Wharf Road. So when that comes, it would be helpful to post who to contact and what might be appropriate or not appropriate.
Grace, her hand up.
Two things. Number one, I know there's some chats from Amelia, and I don't know anybody else about this topic, but also I'm wondering if there's, it's has seemed to me, and I realize I'm relatively out of the loop, that the College of Marin project has been going on without a lot of interface with town folk, with county. I'm sure there's obviously, they must have interface with county at some level because they've got permits and stuff, but I'm wondering if there's any way to connect those dots, because if they're having, large PG&E trucks coming in who may be unaware of the fact that the road underneath them is, about to become a sinkhole or whatever. I'm exaggerating, obviously. I just wonder, I just was like, why isn't there that contact? Like,
Well,
it's
and I
just
think
kind
we
of
could really
mind-boggling to me.
engage College of Marin to help be an advocate to keep that street open, repaired, and seawall. So that's.
I mean, I think there was when they were trying to get people on board, there was quite a lot of outreach. And then once the project went through, which seemed rather rapid, it just seemed like it dropped off. And that may be because I'm not paying attention, but I've been hearing that from people. So I'm raising the question. Like, is there a way?
I think it's a great idea.
Not
I
sure
don't
what
think
it
I'm
is.
gonna be the best person to be that confident.
Yeah. We got ourselves involved when nothing was happening over there. We told them
Right.
to do something with that
Yeah.
property, and then suddenly they started doing something without really
Without
working,
communicating.
to the community at all.
But Kentuckian was.
He was pretty heavily involved.
He was.
Yes.
And is he still? I mean, could he?
I'm sure he could
Create
come, give an update
conversation.
and think about good ways to, solidify those lines of communication.
I
I'm
think it would,
sure.
it would certainly be
He's
helpful for
working
them.
on Post office. right
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
And I know there was a group associated with this, BPUD and Jennifer working on that.
Yeah, I mean, and BPUD has been involved with the folks doing the work at College of Marin because of just sort of the logistics of that, and they've been really nice to work with. Obviously, that's not pertaining to like community outreach of what the kind you're talking about. But they've been very cooperative, and there's been, intention to pave portions to minimize the cost of both our kind of paving needs and stuff like that. So the particular contractor you know, we've communicated with them and we're aware of like the type of work that they're doing, not like obviously when it doesn't impact our infrastructure. But anyway.
I can see that once they open for business, I have a hunch that traffic and parking is gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
generally gonna come back to us.
Yeah.
Because people are gonna start, I just don't think they have enough off-street parking to accommodate what their uses are.
I think I noticed that they had reconfigured, and I may be wrong, their fencing structure, because they had wanted to enclose the parking. But it looks like they opened that back up,
Yeah,
but I don't know that for sure.
we'll just have to see how it works once they get going, but
Well, maybe we could reach out to College and Marin and ask them to give BPUD an update as an agenda item. Or
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that I reach out to Kent because he's just very embedded in that whole world, and rather than just kind of like, you know, throwing a dart against the wall and saying, hey, can somebody reach out? I can read, there's been a few comments. I'll just read sign sorry, this is there anyone, this is Amelia saying, is there anyone we can contact in the county to express our angst? So, and then she says, sign says 1 lane road, but every day giant trucks roll up because there is no sign saying dead end. Com is really walking all over us down here. True, Grace and Amelia, thank you, Grace. Lighting and building notice and damaged neighboring property are things they are ignoring. Building noise, meaning equipment that is running there already. So.
Well, maybe you should try to work with Kent as at least a start, because he does have an open line of communication with these folks.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're doing a good job with interfacing with the neighborhood
Yeah.
that they're impacting.
Um,
And I think that's a very poor way to start.
It is. Yeah, well, they're neighbors, so. They might as well
Mhm.
get
They
in the
should
neighborhood.
start
Yeah,
acting neighborly.
Yeah. All right, so we have two things we're trying to talk about. One of them is the parking committee in general, and then there were these concerns over Wharf Road in particular. So, George, have you
Does
finished
Sherry have anything?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. I have something. Yeah, I do have something to say. Oops. Well, you're going to that's fine that there are maps there because it shows Wharf Road and it shows the College of Marin. I just want to say that the issue about just going back to the issue of the seawall does relate to traffic because they have cordoned off. Oh, you can see it on the map. I think from let's see. Oh, I can't see the map that closely, but
79.
where it goes, where you have to go single file if you're a car. I know it goes past Amelia's. It starts past Amelia's.
93 to 99.
Yeah. So we've lost about 6 or 7 parking spots. So that's what I'm talking. This is the part that I was concerned about. The parking spots aren't as important as the hazard of the part of the cars bunching up on busy days and getting stuck down at the end of the road. And then we have people on the streets, there are no sidewalks, and just having that area cordoned off for one-way traffic tends to bottleneck. And we need more, on the weekends, we need more traffic control if the sheriff can send someone down more frequently, which is doubtful, but this just makes it worse the way the street is right now. And I just felt, you know, as someone who's on the street, living on the street and walking the street, that I wanted to make a point of that. And I was glad, Kirsten, when you brought this up at the last meeting. And I know Tina and Amelia see it, you know, all the time because it's right in their face. So that's what I wanted to say about the seawall. I don't know if either of them want to add to that, but I could, what I was going to say about, pardon?
Ina's got her hand raised.
Yeah, it's fine, whatever people want to say.
No, please continue, Sherry. Finish what you were going to say.
Oh, okay. So what I was gonna do is just refer to this map that's up there. That is available on the website. It's just that I did report last meeting and we didn't have things finalized. Well, things are finalized for presentation. In January, a traffic resolution is expected to go to the Board of Supervisors. And a document that you see here, the traffic layout map, and a description that goes along with that of the resolution will go before the Board of Supervisors. And all of that is embedded in the agenda here for the BPUD meeting. We don't know the date of the Board of Supervisors vote. We also haven't seen what the agenda item for the Board of Supervisors look like. But it's going to match what you see here in terms of showing the locations for the permit and vehicle length restrictions for Brighton Avenue and a portion of Wharf Road. And just as what we have written here, that's not shown, is that the enabling ordinances for all of this were passed in October. So this is just laying out, like it says, where these ordinances will be in place. And then in January, hopefully we'll have the final look at what the agenda is and the date for the board to vote on it. And then after that, permits can be issued. And so that's my update for the Parking Permit Committee.
Go ahead.
I have a question, Sherry. I have heard from somebody that, until this road, single road access gets addressed and or repaired, that we may not be able to have the permitted parking on Wharf Road.
Well, you might have heard it from me.
I don't know who I heard it from.
Well, there's I think we need to cross that road when we get to it, but we've already lost parking, and it would seem difficult for the lagoon side people, who've already lost some parking, to lose more parking because they won't have permits. So the way to and this should, I think maybe next month we could talk about it more once we see, where we're at in timing. Wharf Road's going to be after Brighton Avenue. So maybe by the time it gets to Wharf Road, the seawall will be fixed. So that's another consideration. And also we may need to extend permits to some of the lagoon side people who have red zones in front of their homes and now are blocked from parking across the street. So that is an issue that will need to be addressed once this ordinance is finalized.
Is there any other discussion on this agenda item? No?
I think Tina maybe
Tina?
wants to say something.
Thank you. Just to go back to the seawall, hadn't realized Sherry was going on to parking. So just to circle back, I totally agree with what Amelia is saying about how it's hard to have people come to look at spring, summer, especially summer and fall problems in the winter. And for all of you who avoid coming to the wharf end of the beach on the weekend, I don't blame you a bit. And as Sherry says, total gridlock is achieved with that one lane in front of Keith and Patricia's and up to Amelia's. And the other thing, just in case you haven't been down there lately, I'm no engineer, and it's visibly slanted more towards the lagoon than it used to be. And okay, county, if it's on you, I'm sorry, but it's kind of like, I don't know how long they think they can put it off, is basically what I'm trying to say here.
Well, it's been a subject of discussion off and on for some years now, is it clearly everything is moving towards the lagoon, but it's really the county's project. And there's not much that we as a BPA can do except to protect our pipes running down the middle of the road. Anybody has any thoughts on this subject? I don't know if there is any.
Well, I think if we don't keep some conversation and engagement with the county, we could risk losing that road.
Yeah, and we put them on notice several times. They even seem to acknowledge that it's a problem. But they just, be like a multi-million-dollar project to stop the whole Little Mesa from moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I hate to muddle the whole agenda, but it feels like all of these items here are like loosely connected. But when we get to item 19, that's the LCP proposed amendments to environmental hazards.
Yeah,
This was a meeting which Andrew and Kevin and I attended, that was led by folks at CDA at the county. And this kind of issue of, you know, what is the county's commitment to maintain these, you know, roads, came up, and it was actually sort of the central topic that we discussed. I think the kind of gist of it was that CDA is not really the appropriate entity to be having that conversation. That's really a conversation to have with the county, you know, widely, and DPW, which comes back to my point of like, I need more contacts at the county and make sure that, you know, as I'm like chirping in somebody's ear, that I'm chirping in like the right ear. So, I mean, anyways, I think when we get to that item, we'll talk more about it, but.
And just to confirm, you're saying Dennis wasn't sure who that point of contact was?
Yeah, I think he just wanted to be thoughtful about who that was. There's obviously a lot of people at DPW, and so, yeah.
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 All right.
I'm so happy to look into that.
All right, well, why don't we continue with our agenda, and then we'll revisit this particular subject when we get to item 19.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Sherry.
so with that, I'm going to advance this back up to discussion item and item 1, which is the manager's report.
Okay. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, correct the spelling my name
Sure.
on it.
Right on, yeah.
Oh, your name not? Sorry about that. Sorry, my slides are not advancing, so I think I'm gonna have to go into non-presenter mode. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I talked to you guys about this for a couple of months now, but the idea of basically changing up our water supply memo and how that's done, presented on. So what I'm trying to do now, and sorry, this is a little bit awkward, I feel like, this whole down the line thing. Hello down there.
Saying I feel badly for having you at my back.
Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe we can reconfigure the room next time, but so basically what I wanted to do was pare down the supply memo side of things in our meeting, in the interest of making our meetings a little more efficient. And so the kind of supply memo that you guys are used to seeing that I normally present on is going to be here on our website. Let's see if this works. So basically Belle set this up so that there's a page that is the BC PUD water supply updates. And then if you, oh, crap, it's not actually, I'm not sharing my thing here, wait. Let me stop the share for a second.
Do you want to just go to the website or I can try and share it?
It's fine. It's just when I was sharing, it's like I need to share my desktop rather than the actual presentation. So let's see here. So here it is. Can you guys see that? So basically, yes, this is the page, that link that I just went to brings you here, and then you can, you know, see, and this is, oh, this will then bring you to, you know, a version of the water supply memo with all of the, you know, modeling that I've been presenting on. And so that's kind of what will, obviously, as that populates, then you'll see the November, the December, the January, et cetera. Okay, so that's, all of that information will still be available to you, board members and the public. But what I want to do now is just talk about, and obviously this is an iterative process. So if you guys want to see different data shared or, you know, whatever, you can just communicate to me directly. And now, sorry, let me just get back to my presentation. Okay, so instead what I want to do is present a actual video of the creek. So this is the upper impoundment, and this was just like, you know, a week ago. I don't know if you guys can, I think probably because I'm not sharing my sound, you can't see it, but that's the upper impoundment, right? This is just, you know, it sits like that always because of this structural wall. And you can obviously see that it's flowing, and you can see this is actually where we're drawing water from right now presently. This is,
Sorry.
oh yeah, sorry. Oh, this is on this computer. Let me, not too many.
There we go.
Yep. Too many computers. Okay. So yeah, this is just that one. And what it looks like right now. This is the lower impoundment because the radial gate is up. You can see there's no water pooling really there. And that's what it looks like. So it's, you know, I think it's helpful for the public to see these creeks because these are not, this is not a huge creek. I think when people envision our water supply, this is not what they're picturing. And so I thought it's kind of nice and it is dynamic. So I'll bring this back and maybe we can even look like, hey, what did last month look like? What does this month look like? Especially, obviously, this is a particularly dynamic point of the year. This was after the rains that we received. And interestingly, as this was sort of one of the earlier videos we took, I was thinking that, oh, since we haven't had rain for a while, we'll see the kind of creek pop after a rain, and then we'll kind of see it dwindle. In fact, I think there's a bunch of tributaries. So we saw like the flows actually increase for a while. There's sort of like this delay. Not super quantitative. That's just kind of, obviously, this is just all about, you know, a qualitative perspective. Okay, and then
That down there on the bottom, that big metal corrugated
this.
stuck in the ground, I've always felt that's a little dangerous for animals or kids who could fall in there because that's half full of water. No ladder to get out. Is there a way we could cover that up with a grate or something? I think there are 2 of them up there.
Okay, I can ask. I mean, it's not nothing we've ever discussed as a crew, but I'll ask and see if that's feasible.
I mean, I know the school has kind of been asked, but I mean, it's open to the public, right? It's a public trail, so people.
Yeah, it could be that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then same deal here now, just looking at the reservoirs. Again, we were on the reservoir in October for like 5 days. I reported back on that last time. So this isn't like, you know, a huge impact on our operations right now currently, but you can see that the Azola is slowly returning. And so this is, you know, I mean, time flies when you're working at the BPUD, but basically it's almost been 6 months since we had the last removal, and our kind of idea was they came out last time and we had waited quite a lot a while, and the Isola was really bad, and I think it was like even a 3-day kind of excursion. And so the idea is, okay, if we do it in a more timely manner, like if we have them come out in January now, which will be right around the 6-month point, what will that operation look like? How much will it cost? And can we kind of do this biannual, sort of stay on top of it and keep it like a less expensive operation? And that's that. And then this gets into sort of the kind of trim data set that I hope to be presenting here. So basically, this is sort of looking at the current month. And again, we're always looking a little bit rear view. So this is obviously the no, we're in the December meeting. We're looking at the November supply memo effectively. And so you can see there is these downward trends, which we expect in the winter-ish months. And this uptick here, I'll talk about that in a second. Again, just to kind of like bring you into my thinking, I'm kind of reporting everything instead of in these tens of thousands of gallons that are like our actual production. Just look at it in terms of the gallon per day per connection. I think those numbers are just a little bit, they're the same effectively, but it seems a little bit easier for people to digest these numbers. And also get a sense of your kind of what is your personal impact on those, so you can think about it in terms of your household. And how do you relate to that, that average mark? So sorry, yes. So basically, I mean, I don't necessarily, but the green line is production. Again, remember, these are estimates based on what we're sending out to the town. And the estimates really are at the level of consumption here. We're not talking about people's reading their meters or anything. We're talking about what we, the amount of water that we essentially sent to the town within the last, 24 hours. Okay, so the other thing that we can look at is obviously that sort of, okay, but how does November's usage compare to previous years? So this is kind of a snapshot of what our usage is looking like over the last couple of years. And you can see this is a general trend that I've talked about before, that post the drought, people's consumption went way down, and now we're slowly ticking back up. This is sort of like the year. This is actually part of a snapshot from what is called the drought report that we need to, as a as a regulated body, need to present this or input this data, and we get basically a graph spat back out to us. So this is essentially looking at that same data that we input right now in terms of the production and consumption that I was just presenting to you. Essentially what happened, we report that out in these meetings as like average, but you can obviously look at it, okay, what was the tally for the month? That's what this is basically starting, from here, January, February, March. This is the tally over the 2024 year.
Why does the supply line drop off at the very end?
That's just a crappiness of their data set. So like if you haven't input the data yet, it just shows it as 0. Then this is, again, this is that same data, but just, sorry, the same data I've showed you previously. This is just bringing back that slide. This is the only data that we have for real consumption. And this is obviously very delayed, right? Because or not very delayed, but a little delayed, because this is literally us going and reading meters and then looking at that. So just to remind you, basically, we're now in the 24-25 water year, right? And we have the first tranche that we do is June, July, August in the back Mesa, and that's how much water they used. And so this is that trend that I was talking about, right? 21, 22, you see consumption goes way down, and we're still slowly building back up. And you can already see, if you compare the same tranche, right, you're starting to look at consumption creeping back up again, even still. So I don't think I pointed this out maybe in the last slide. Yeah, here. I just wanted to point out this this is not what we would necessarily predict. I haven't gone back to look really closely as, oh, do we always use, the down always use more water in November than it does October? I don't think that that's a general trend. And just pointing out here that probably much of what we're seeing here, given that this November is really peaked relative to the last 2 years, is that we had some large leaks in November, and that probably contributed to the uptick again. So, you know, this would fall out of the wash if we looked at the actual meter reads, if those leaks are on our side of the system, right? Okay, so that's basically the the new streamlined water supply memo.
Yeah. Very
You
good.
said- yeah.
Yeah, except for this thing.
Thought it was helpful to see the pictures of the Azola too.
Yeah.
Yes.
that's great.
Yeah,
Does it creep in from that side, or is that the wind?
that's just the
blowing
wind blowing. So if it's really still, right now, it appears that the whole thing's covered. But it's really thin, you know, and when it gets thick enough, then the wind basically has like a nominal effect on it. Anyway. Okay, so I talked about this already. Basically, that meeting, the quarterly meeting I had with Rodoni happened last week. Again, just emphasizing this point of, hey, there's a lot of things that we do related to rights of way, and it would be really helpful to have a contact at the county that is works under DPW. We also talked about beach closures, Wharf Road, potential for garbage cans at the end of the Wharf Road, etc.
Do we know why those were removed?
They were removed by the tide. So there were garbage cans there that were on the rock face, or sorry, in that kind of rock outcropping or whatever, not, you know what I'm talking about, the boulders there.
Last year is what-
I'm not even sure if it was that recent, but yeah. This is just a brief update on leaks we've had. So we had a couple of leaks on Brighton, kind of similar to Wharf Avenue. I'd say they were really kind of scary when you look at sort of the state of the infrastructure. These were the leak was a saddle, you know, like for a provision of water to an individual house, right? Where you have their lateral line going, the service line. And basically that saddle had disintegrated. And when they opened up the road, they noticed that the next saddle looked like it was in such disrepair that it made sense to just change it because it was just a matter of time. So this is the leak up here, just this dark spot. I have to say, we have a channel where we post images and communicate with each other, and especially during emergencies. And I did this double take here because I was like, what is this leak? It looked like it was like water flowing down Brighton Avenue. I don't know, there's some kind of like trompe d'oeil where you think that it's like water everywhere, but really it's just this little, dark spot here. But anyway, so this is the repaired saddle with the new lateral line there. And so, yeah, it's like this theme of the downtown infrastructure is just really falling apart. And it's like, we can either proactively manage it, or we will, just be responding to these leaks. We also have a leak. We also had a fairly substantial leak on Birch since I last reported to you. And then the other thing that's going on is because of all of these leaks, we've coordinated like a Piazza outing where they're going to pave all of these things at once. I know that Jennifer always has harped that really, especially within the recent future, the paving costs for these projects are half the project cost. And so it just really behooves us to, when we can, to consolidate them, because some of the costs are like them bringing their equipment out here, etc. The other thing that we have going on is basically pretty routine leaks on the infrastructure in the plant itself. And so just here's a little video of what that looks like. I don't know if you guys can see that. That didn't. Oh, there we go. You see water spurting there? Okay, so this is basically this whole convoluted wall where the water is obviously going through this thing. And my understanding is that this convolution is necessary for maximizing the aluminum contact time with the water to make that an efficient filtration of the carbonate materials. But this, I don't know, I think the operators feel that this wall has to be repaired all the time, and we're getting to the point where we're repairing repairs, and there's like so much Band-Aid that it makes, first of all, leaks more common within those like Band-Aids, and the leak repair is more difficult as one repair is on top of another, and that there's value in thinking about redesigning this wall. The other thing that needs to happen is basically there was a long time ago, I think, a PRV that failed that was, a pressure reducing valve that leads into this. And that means that the pressure along this convolution is higher than it should be. And so that basically also puts stress on all of these joints. Okay, moving on from leaks. So the wells project, I reported to you guys on this last time that I was requesting some of these things. Well, we have since gotten our approval to essentially extend the deadline for this project to September 30 and move funds around, because basically the coastal development permits ate up all of our, engineering fund, or like a specific task that is geared towards our engineering. So essentially we're robbing from our construction costs to supplement our permitting costs. And ultimately the idea is that then as a secondary step, I'll ask for additional funding. Hopefully that comes through. There's no guarantee there. But definitely there's a real urgency to get this project kind of moving. And so that's something that I'm, definitely communicating to the operators, because a big part of it will be done in-house by us. We also have the tank site replacement project. That basically had some delays. First, there was the storm, then that led into the holiday. And then essentially we kind of pulled Piazza away from that to deal with some of the leaks that we were contending with. But we expect that work will resume on this Monday, and that there's a couple of more weeks worth of work. And that we're still kind of on a timeline to have this project finish in early January. We did run in, continually throughout the project, we've had some, change orders, but there has been a kind of heftier one recently to basically ensure that that there's a mechanical restraint that wasn't that we didn't realize that we would need, or the engineer didn't realize that the positioning of everything meant that this restraint needs to be there. The solar inverters, I think I've been talking to you about this, but they came out last week, I think it was, and repaired that. So inverter number 2 is back online, which is like, I feel like I want to bake Jennifer a cake, because it's something that she's like talked about a lot. But the issue is that those the monitoring systems for those systems are really old. I'm trying to figure out if there's any kind of login information. And so I'm continuing to work with the solar technicians at Solar Technologies, that's the company, to just kind of figure out what is the most straightforward and kind of efficient and not too expensive path forward for us to have them sort of regularly maintain the systems, and also implement some kind of monitoring system. I think the idea would be that we would be able to monitor them if we actually have like a database that we could actually look into. And so, yeah, the question is kind of, well, is the existing monitoring system there, which is the company is defunct? is that even accessible anymore? Is that data being sent somewhere in like, you know, did some company take over that? And is that data still accessible? Or probably more likely, do we have to put in a new monitoring system? So the radial gate repair, so I submitted the special use permit for that this week on Monday, with the idea that I met with, that was my first time meeting with a contact at the National Park Service, which was nice. And basically I used this as an opportunity to connect with them, essentially finding out what we need to do in the way of, you know, submitting our permit, just to make sure it gets streamlined, conveying to them that there's a lot of urgency around this because we really need to have this looked at when the flows are low, which you probably appreciated from the video. They are really low. The engineer, I shared those same videos with them, and they were, you know, really, I think, surprised and thought that they were contending with something that was like a lot more water to kind of divert for them to do their assessment. So I think they basically, you know, because I was feeling like last time I presented to you, oh, we're getting so close to the rains here, how we just kind of lost our opportunity. After I showed those videos to the engineer, they were like, oh, this is nothing, like, let's move forward with it. So essentially, yeah, I submitted the permit this week with the idea that they said they would look at it today, and would hopefully get it back to us within the week. I think we're kind of right at that point now. Obviously, there's some rain forecast, and I mean, we'll just kind of move forward. I think there's still, you know, a couple of weeks before we could get on the engineer's docket, and so we'll see. I mean, I kind of figured, you know, if this is something where effectively we get all of our ducks in a row and ultimately we have to postpone, we'll be ready to go next time. Miscellaneous updates. So I've talked to you guys about this, but this is the Stinson's Ocean Protection Grant that they submitted, and they received an award for. Basically, we started communicating with them quite a bit and the Ocean Protection Council to just coordinate this effort. It looks like we're going to postpone until to resubmit our proposal, like our updated proposal. They're still guaranteed the money that they were awarded. But basically, we will go back to the OPC and request the maximum $1.5 million amount that you can request. We've been told that we're likely to receive that amount. And it will give us a little more time to coordinate our efforts and ensure that the grant is really serving both districts' needs. So that's that. But I will obviously, as that gets formalized and the final grant submission gets submitted, I'll come back to you guys for a formal letter of that can be, you know, included in that proposal.
George, a
Yeah.
quick question about that. Do you have particular projects earmarked for that?
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't go
I'm
into.
sure you've talked about this before, but I
Yes,
don't remember.
I didn't go into this in detail, but their grant is specifically under a, you know, this is obviously, you can see the language here, it's very broad, sea level adaptation planning grant program. Theirs is specifically under a, or like within a pipeline that addresses water quality issues and infrastructure. So they are looking for it. Their project was written as a regional approach, so it included us, which is why our involvement needed to be formalized, but a regional approach to get folks off of on-site wastewater treatment systems, i.e. septic systems, onto a sewer system, a sanitary sewer system. So basically, there are a lot of what they were proposing was essentially looking at our system and the potential to expand our existing septic system. So some of it is, you know, assessing our collection system. These are things, obviously, we don't have our collection system mapped. We would love to have it mapped. So this grant proposed doing that. And so, you know, this essentially is funding to allow us to do a lot of things that we either had to do, wanted to do, or it makes sense for us to do. There are other parts of the project that are much more ambitious. And obviously in our community will be potentially contentious. Getting people off of septic systems, we know, is kind of a hot button issue. And so a lot of the funds in this grant go towards public outreach and stuff like that. So anyways, I will obviously, I mean, we're still kind of working behind the scenes to figure out exactly how you know, the budget lines, all of the tasks that will specifically be looked at and the deliverables from the grant. Once that gets better fleshed out, then obviously I'll bring that that proposal to you guys, and you know, draft a letter so that we can submit it to include with the kind of resubmission of the proposal. But again, that will probably come to you either in January or February.
Hey, Georgia,
Mhm.
just wanted to mention that, I attended the Marin County Sea Level Rise.
Oh, yeah.
Steering Committee meeting in December, and have been like follow-up homework items about like who the stakeholders are and what are, I've been focusing on West Marin because we're kind of a different beast than the Bay, because they have to deal with the Bay Conservation Development Commission versus the Coastal Commission. But all that to say is I've identified this and the Ocean Protection Council as like a thing that is already happening and that they should like add to their list.
Mhm.
Just want to let you know that. Feeding them. things that are
Great.
happening.
Yes, yeah, and I think it will make sense. You know, like some of it is literally, you know, because I mean, if you look at the grant, while it's called Sea Level Rise Adaptation Planning, obviously it's more broadly concerning impacts of sea level rise and other climate impacts. So for instance, like bluff erosion obviously is directly impacted by sea level rise, but even like groundwater in elevation of groundwater levels, all of these things obviously impact septic systems, our infrastructure, like all of it is, you know, ultimately connected. And as an example too of like our lift station, like to your point of, oh, are these things that we would want to look at anyway, you know, or we have, you know, we need to make sure, obviously we have major infrastructure that is going to be directly impacted by sea level rise, especially as we understand that the road itself is not acting as like an appropriate barrier to protecting our infrastructure. So I think some of it is, you know, to what extent is the county, you know, and I think that's important to be communicating with them, but it's like, to what extent is the county looking at these same funds to repair Wharf Road or this seawall there, or, you know, anyway. So this is all, the other important thing to point out about this grant, it's a feasibility study. There's no, you know, it's all about assessing and looking at solutions, potential solutions. And then the idea is that there's further funding after this SP1 grant. There's like the next tranche of money from the state that will look at, okay, of those feasibility, I mean, it's not necessarily that the ones that were most promising from the first round of feasibility studies then get funded, but it increases your likelihood of getting funding for actually construction, or at least contributing to the construction of some of these projects. So okay, so the groin repair project, this is also a Gannett Fleming, just to let you know, they communicated with us this week and said that, you know, the folks that they had originally secured to do this work were no longer available. So I don't know, I mean, I'm trying to actually schedule this work and it seems very difficult. But basically there's also the potential that the amount of money that you guys approved for this proposal, that I might have to bring that back to you. I don't really know what sort of like the statutory limits are in terms of like how far above their propose, like if it's within 5%, do I have to come back to the board? I'm not really sure. I'll look into that. And I don't know. They haven't gotten back to me. They just said that the rates that they cited were inappropriately looking at rates from 2023 instead of 2024. And so that needs to be updated and we'll see what happens there. But what's that?
Now we're going into 20.
I know. Yeah.
Everybody in construction and consultants are.
Yeah.
increasing
Yeah.
rates.
Yeah, so it's possible that I have to come back to you guys with a new request for approval for this project.
Mhm.
Just to remind folks, this is, we independently collect money for this specific project and sock it away. So it's like, it's already earmarked for this project.
Yeah.
This is
And
kind of minor, but just something as you're looking at your construction budgets, the thing to be projecting for are the increase in tariffs that everybody's facing themselves, particularly for materials or anything that's coming from abroad. So you might, as you're starting to estimate projects for construction, you might want to ask them if you should be having a line item for tariff increase. They don't know what it is yet, but everybody says it's.
okay. I already talked about this, so I'm just gonna skip ahead. This is just the Wharf Road, and the update from the engineer at the county. And then this is the seawall repair. Basically, I talked to you guys about this last time that the county had reached out to us. This was basically us digging out the piles as best we could. I mean, some of it was more sort of reconnaissance. They were kind of looking at the plans and seeing that there was all this like embedded rock that was supposed to be there. So I think some of it was, hey, do you guys see that rock? Basically, I'm not really sure like what we gave them was super valuable, but they basically wrote back to us and said, thank you. So I'm assuming it didn't, like, on the surface, I was like, I can't tell what's going on there. Essentially, it was just like dig out the piles and see sort of the condition of them, but the engineers were not present during the digging out of this. So, this was just essentially us taking photos. It's possible, I think originally when they were talking about this, they were talking about us bringing some kind of equipment down there. But it's really difficult to dig out the piles, which I think perhaps was slightly good news in that it was consistent with what they thought was in the plans. Like it wasn't just, just tons of sand, but I'm not sure. Again, this is not our project. We're just kind of helping the county out. And then I just wanted to update on the beach closure, which is to say I don't have any updates except that everyone who is interested should attend the virtual town hall Wednesday, December 18 at 5 p.m. This is just, the link to their PDF material. So, but as the beach is still closed, I think that they'll be looking to give further updates at that meeting. Sorry, December 18th at 5 p.m.
So is there a possibility that there could be sort of a formal announcement that the beach is no longer closed?
I think, yeah, anything's possible. I do not know.
Okay.
Question. This is maybe something I should ask if I attend, but do you know if any of the businesses will be reimbursed at all for the business that they lost because of this beach closure?
I don't, you mean like from the county itself? I don't think without litigation that would happen. I mean, I don't know. Jack, what do you think? I think that what they're definitely looking to be supportive. They, at the walk we did, there was the, economics.
Yeah.
Or what, I'm not even remembering what her title was, but basically it's like economics revitalization person that essentially has this like super broad title where they're involved in kind of ensuring that folks have potentially access to funds to repair leaky faucets, all the way to, supporting Smileys or a community to make it more vibrant. So like, can this person really, I don't know, like it's sort of an impossible job, I would say. So I don't really know what their specific tasked with in terms of the impacts on businesses downtown, but I know that they were at the meeting. They're definitely, the county recognizes that it had a huge impact. And I think that the idea is that this person is looking into, oh, you know, if somebody is like literally holding on by a thread, are there low interest loans that effectively the county could try to secure for them? But I don't think there was any, I haven't heard that the county is directly reimbursing. I mean, I just don't think the county has those
It
funds.
just seems like some of those businesses, even a low interest loan may not be enough incentive.
No.
I mean, I'm hearing 11 is closing. I've heard that the shops at the gas station are really being impacted.
Yeah.
With like days of no sales.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think we should, I don't know who's communicating with those businesses. I just heard about this Monday from one of the business owners, so. I don't know if somebody's out there talking to these individual business owners. And it just feels like our Bolinas community with the post office having been closed and the gas station, you know, having been closed, and now these other kind of critical services starting to close.
I was down there when you were doing the walk and everybody was getting the business card, and every time I go downtown, I ask the business owners if they've gotten any follow-up, and they all say no, and they kind of don't really have any like notion that they're gonna get helped. And I don't know, it's just from a personal community member standpoint, it kind of hurts me that the problem was basically like false.
It was.
And it like hit them right into the juiciest part of their business year, and they're already kind of running low margins, and they've kind of just been told, I'm sorry, here's a business card.
It seems it was rather precipitous announcement with really no thought in advance, and almost a self-created emergency. Even though it's no emergency condition they're talking about, it's been there forever. So it doesn't seem fair that just by saying, no, that you're closed, that's it.
I don't know, maybe they're talking about this at the civic group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go.
You would think that, I mean, the business owners themselves, I would think would coalesce. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they would join together and say,
Yeah.
and be loud, because individually, I think it's
They just may
difficult.
not have the energy or the.
They may not, but.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to say that the county is doing nothing. I met with Chris, I meet with her on Wednesdays, so I met with her earlier today. And she did say that this woman, Raisa, I'm forgetting her last name, but that she's actively working on this. But again, I don't think that's like gonna be like, hey, here's like your pot of money to get you through this hardship. My personal opinion, I'm just gonna like, I think that, you know, obviously there was a lot of damage done by that, and I agree with your guys' assessment of like, it seemed very premature and potentially unwarranted, right, in the like broad scheme. And so I think the county kind of, you know, places it as like, we couldn't help it. It caught rapid fire, you know, we just basically said something and we intended it for it to be very locally, you know, broadcast, but it just like blew up. But I think there's also a way in which, the sort of next phase of things of, oh, the 45,000 gallons, you know, a day that we reported of like raw sewage, that wasn't correct. So to what extent, you know, I think it's difficult for the county because I think they probably regretted that whole dissemination. And so is it in their interest really to say, we were wrong, hello, we were wrong, you know what I mean? I think that their like vociferousness in which they gave that first messaging around, hey, there's, you know, raw sewage pouring onto your beach, we're closing the beach, blah, blah, blah. It's like they haven't had the same kind of fervor to be like, we were wrong, because it doesn't make them look good, right?
Well, and it might make them liable.
Yeah.
To say we were wrong. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, it's like they're not in the easiest position to retract that. And there's not the incentive structure for them to really retract it in a super effective manner. So, you know, I don't know what to do about that, but I do think some of it in terms of impacts on businesses and stuff like that is really like a spreading of a message of like, the beach is not contaminated. You know, this was effectively a false alarm.
Yeah,
And, you know, but again, I mean, obviously too, it's like, there are things that gain traction. If you say there's millions of gallons of sewage, sewage on some nice fancy beach, that gains traction. If you say, oh, wait, there's no sewage here, nobody like, you know, that doesn't like spread virally, so it's hard. But yeah.
maybe it's time to sit down with a handful of the business owners and try to put together a coalition of, you know, there's probably a half a dozen of them or so.
Yeah.
There is a procedure where you can file a claim against a governmental entity for damages that are caused. And then generally they deny it. That's just their standard practice. And you have 6 months to file then a lawsuit to collect your money. So maybe it's time to sit down with the ones that are most affected and have them make a collective claim for, you know, their loss of income, because it really was unfair. And like saying, I'm sure in hindsight, they're sorry they did it, but you know, sorry isn't gonna be enough.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Who would represent that? Them.
Just saying, really.
I would be willing to do it, you know, I mean, I think to start with, I probably would just go down there and talk to
I'm willing to work
Tyrone
with
and
you.
Emery
Yeah,
and
Emery.
AB and Samira and Buzz, I don't know, just go down the road and just ask, you know, are you interested? And then I'll try to meet with,
I'll work with you on that.
okay, let's do that because it's unfair to them and yeah.
Town party, it says beach reopening, it's good, we're at a party.
Yeah,
Come join us.
Yeah, I think the town could rally around too. It's like, I certainly don't go out to eat downtown
yeah,
ever, really, because I cook at
Yeah.
home,
Because
but,
you're trying to avoid wharf.
well, right, there's that. But I mean, I think that more publicity within ourselves saying, hey, these are people that we know and care about. And they've really been impacted by this. Everybody go out to buy something once a week, or, I mean, I think that, I mean, it's not gonna make a huge difference. But
Probably
I
would
would
though,
think it would make a difference. You know,
Have a big
I
old
mean,
beach Party.
yeah, like,
We
Put
should
it in
have
the-
this-
put it on- put it in here, say.
No, I don't
Like,
like push.
it's sort of like shop local, but it's like
Yeah.
even more so.
Yeah.
You know, right now, this is like, now it's really important to do this, people.
I didn't want to hear the zero electricity grid before I go.
Oh, they are not presenting, sorry. I should have. Yeah,
Hey Jack, I think, and Kirsten, in your discussions, initial discussions, I think it'd be helpful to have some numbers that they could look at their income this,
Totally.
for that period
Yeah.
this year
Yes.
versus the few years past, and just
Yeah.
put some numbers on, because we all imagine they've been impacted,
Yeah.
they're saying they have been, but I think having some numbers would be.
Thanks, guys.
I can,
Thanks, Jen.
if you guys, yeah, I can prep some graphs if you guys.
yeah.
I mean,
No, you're talking about from the individual.
From the businesses, yeah.
I know.
No, I know, I'm
With
just-
me over 8 years, she has had, I think, 3 days with zero
Yeah,
income, and in the last, like, what is it, 40 days or whatever it is. She had numbers, but it was shocking how many 0 days.
that would be the basis of the claim is you can just take comparable
Mhm.
period, you know, from the time that they county announced it until
Yeah.
at least an announcement that the beach is no longer closed and everybody is welcome or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they can stop the ball from rolling down the road here
Yeah.
just by making that announcement, you know? I mean, they started it so they could stop it. And then we could measure those 2 dates, look at comparable periods from the past and then compare what they've lost and the differences they're claiming.
I mean, the thing is too, you'll even see a precipitous drop from like just obviously the time
Yeah.
right before too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of ironic that we're wishing for more traffic downtown.
No, I was suggesting come by bike or
Excellent idea.
surfboard.
Yes,
or-
surfing, yeah, paddle over from Stinson.
All right.
I have a separate question, that earthquake, I have never experienced as big personally an earthquake and as long as I felt it here in New
You
Orleans.
felt it?
It was huge, and I was on a Zoom call and the people, then this, so one of them had earthquake alarm go off. They were in the city, they could see my camera. and everything.
Wow.
Wow.
Really?
So I definitely got up, and then the tsunami warning came in, and I can tell you the entire community of downtown evacuated and went up. I mean, most of them were on Overlook, but a few of us went up to a little bit farther. It was a big team gathering, and then when they announced it, you could see the waves coming in, but actually it died out at noon by the time they said it was gonna hit. When I came back down, the town was just empty. It was, so I'm wondering, I'm assuming no impact to our operations or infrastructure or anything.
No,
That's lucky.
Well, that's good.
All right.
I mean, that I know of,
Right.
No geysers.
no.
Okay.
All right, let's get going with the
Okay.
agenda.
Where are we? Yes. Sorry, Jack, keep going.
Yeah, you should keep going. You're somewhere around miscellaneous updates, I believe.
Oh, I'm done.
Oh, you're done?
Mhm.
Okay. Item 2, there's nothing. 3, we've already done. 4 is being continued.
Yeah, that will hopefully come back in January.
Okay. There's nothing for resource recovery. Resident parking permit, we've done. Land stewardship, there's nothing. That takes us to item 8. These are ad hoc committee updates, Recology Detailed Rate Review Committee. We have one more session. Yeah.
And then I sent our response letter today.
Okay,
We are, I feel like, very near the kind of tail end of things, so hopefully they sort of schedule that we're proposing right now is come back to the board for full approval. I think it's in February. And then, or it might actually be January. I think it's January, and then we would do our Prop 218 notice, have the 45 days. Ultimately, the new rate structure would be implemented on April 1 if everything goes smoothly.
okay. Nothing about bike path, building committee. Is there any report?
Do you guys want to report out on our building committee meeting?
Not much report.
Yeah.
How about Canyon Road?
We also had a meeting, not much to report there either, though, although we continue to work.
Okay.
Somebody.
Yeah, we have,
Juice has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Eric Juice, do you have your hand up? It's gone. All right, let's keep going. Standing committee updates, looks like.
yes,
Sorry.
sorry, yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, just really briefly, the building committee, I did want to report out that the last time we spoke that we were waiting for some biological period to end so that we could eradicate the bats that had come back. And so we did that. And so that was Mr. Raccoon is the outfit that we used. So you'll see that was a couple, like $1,000 or something like
In the
that.
BPIT building or in the?
Sorry, in the lab building.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and it's in what we call like the bat cave. That portion that is kind of more storage on the far end. So that's kind of what is, yeah, rebooting our efforts. The Canyon Road Committee, there is yeah, more efforts that, I mean, I'm continuing to work on that and try to, work all angles, both the funding and the engineering side of things and the regulatory side.
Have
But-
they got full neighborhood approval for the amount of money that it's gonna cost yet? 'Cause that was kind of close, but still pending last time we. heard from
No,
them?
no, I think that we're trying to figure out if we can do some legwork to you know, are there potential ways to make that funding more palatable? So, yeah,
Like grants or something like that.
grants or other low-income loans, or is there a funding structure where the yes.
Looks like Eric.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Off mute. Is he wanting to participate?
I don't know.
I mean, he wrote a comment saying, please report out on Canyon Road, so,
Okay,
You are.
yeah.
that's being done.
I don't know if there's anything else that Kevin and Andrew want to add to that.
I would say there's a lot of paths that we need to go down to explore and kind of confirm that there are options, or that the permitting can happen, or that there is capacity, there's regional water quality control board, state board stuff with sewer hookups, just seeing if we can expand our system. There may also be, I think, another way to potentially engineer this that could be, like, we kind of thought, well, is this the best system that's been proposed so far? And so we might be circling back to see if there's a more cost-effective or efficient way to connect. And so there's just, with all the other things, I think I'll say for Georgia that this is just a lot of things to research, and you're probably still collecting that information.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, I just feel like it's a little premature because I don't really have concrete information to give people that I think is going to be super satisfying. But just to let people know, one of the things that I talked to Rodoni about, and also with Chris Chu, is just sort of framing this as I hope that, you know, because one of the things that we are really contending with that seems difficult is, okay, there's an ephemeral stream here, and what is the permitting going to look like that allows us to, you know, build the thing that we're proposing to build? And getting a sense from the county as to what permits will be required, what checklist items will we have to provide when we go for our coastal development permits, whether that's us or individual homeowners, like kind of doing that legwork. And essentially, it's not clear and it's a complicated project. And so one of the things that when I got that answer back from the county, was really kind of pressuring them to, well, you know, can you see this as a joint project between us and you? Because yes, we have the sewer system, but you are the folks that are overseeing the permitting of these septic systems. You are also the folks who have a beach closure that might be directly related to the failing of some of these septic systems. So can we approach this project cooperatively so that it's not just us like getting in line and being like, what permits do we need and what do we have to pay you to get these permits? But is there the potential to really work on this together? I think, unfortunately, the county framework doesn't allow them to be like, hey, you don't have to pay these dues and we'll work with you on this. But I think there is a kind of general receptivity, especially, you know, on the part of Chris Chu to help where she can, you know, especially around some of the, you know, like, you know, is there funding available? And, you know, and even if it's like, you know, just helping us understand what those resources are. I don't think there's county funding really for these types of projects. And then just one other thing to say, that this is not like something that the county is only dealing with here. This is basically a big issue in unincorporated Marin, where there is all of these folks on septic system in unincorporated Marin, some of them in kind of worse situations than us, where they, you know, have, you know, are effectively impacting creek water quality. And so it's like, you know, it's a big thing on the county's radar of like, how are we going to do all of this, especially, and this is what we're contending with, these projects are not inexpensive. And so when you actually look at, oh, okay, here's the engineering solution, it's like, okay, but there's this huge activation energy to be like, okay, now we need to secure the funding to actually implement this plan. And so, yeah, so I continue to work on it daily. But basically some of it is really kind of to Andrew's point, we kind of got to this point where, at least for me, I felt like I kind of got plopped into this midstream. And I'm just like, I wanted a little bit, and I know this is incredibly frustrating for folks who are dealing with this, you know, where they have homes on Canyon Road, but it's like, can we hit pause for a second, hit rewind, and just make sure I understand why we were proposing the engineering solution we were proposing, and are there other options available that might be more cost efficient? Why were we proposing the specific engineering proposal we were proposing? And then one other thing to just throw in there, I think, is that while we're doing this, we need to really ensure that, you know, there aren't other homes that are directly in the vicinity of Canyon Road, that it doesn't make sense at this point, early stage, to look at all of the folks that are right there. So that's basically the direction that our committee was taking. And so it's like, yeah, it's frustrating, but
It seems to me that we're really in a rock and a hard place situation here, at least those folks on Canyon are, because on the one hand, they're getting notices and this, that, and the other, and it feels very urgent to them with good reason. And in order to actually do anything about it from our end as the BPUD, there's all this process to go through, as well as an enormous amount of money that somebody is going to have to come up with, not the BPUD. And so it's this hurry up and wait situation, which I mean, it feels to me like we have been working on this for a number of years, and it's been so damn slow, and I understand their frustration. And so much of it's out of our hands.
yeah. I mean, I would say, just in like, I don't want to completely deflect all, like, a huge part of the slow pace of everything we do here is that we have too much on our plate. So it's like, if my only project was Canyon Road, obviously I would make progress more efficiently. That's just not what the reality is.
I think maybe we should, as a committee, we should, even if it's a very incomplete status, we should just give an update of what we're looking at and where we're at to the homeowners.
Absolutely.
And just looking at some of the comments from Eric, I'm just thinking that I can see that they're frustrated, and I think that this is taking a long time, but if this is taking this opportunity, I will say, to connect to the sewers, which is a very good opportunity. If that is taking too much time, these homeowners are welcome to apply for a septic permit to like repair their system. And if they think that they can beat the dollars and beat the process that we're going through, I think that they're welcome to try that. But I think if it costs $100,000 to put in a new septic system, if you can even get approval, which I don't think you will, that hanging in there for this project and being patient and suffering with us through these frustrations is going to be worth it in the end. So.
Yeah, and they're not on like pump and haul orders or anything. There's only 2 of the homes that were kind of brought into the fold originally because of septic issues. So I don't think, I mean, just to, you know, just so there's not misinformation out there. I mean, obviously there's a sense of urgency, and people don't want to be contributing personally to an environmental hazard, right? Like, there's the kind of personal, you know, there's that sense of urgency, but as far as like, you know, the county breathing down their neck, hey, you need to, you know, fix your septic system right now. I don't think that's the case for at least 4 of the homeowners, and even the 2 that have been highlighted where potentially you would go down a road of you need to start to get on an expensive pump and haul. I don't think that they've been ordered to do that either.
Yeah, I mean, the red takes happened in 2018.
Yes.
So there's definitely, if there's environmental concerns, it's like, well, why doesn't the county have any teeth to enforce this? So I think the county should be brought into the fold more. I think we're trying to work on it and develop a situation or a solution that works with our system and doesn't potentially involve failing septic systems. So the urgency factor, I wouldn't worry about, at least from getting pressure from the county, because they've been waiting 6 years to enforce a red tag.
And I don't think the county would ever approve, continuing with septic systems there.
No,
This is not an option.
yeah, the county has said you have to connect to the beehive, but they're not, they haven't given any conditions of that connection, timeline,
No,
a penalty.
no,
Um,
because they knew that we had to go to the state and certify we even had capacity to
Exactly.
add somebody, et cetera. So the county's been pretty understanding in that respect. But I don't think there's any alternative other than to hook up to the septic system. So,
Sewer system.
Sewer system.
I mean, the sewer system,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do we need to read Eric's,
I'm
Sure.
sorry, I'm having,
Contamination, no, there, it's not.
The allegation was made, or
Yeah.
there was, that question was put out when the beach was first closed, is, are these two things potentially related?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there's been no
connection.
factual connection.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Eric, I'm not, I see his comments pop up, but they're not in the chat, so however he's commenting is like a,
but if you go to the chat, it says there are 23 chats.
no,
I
I know.
don't see it either in the chat.
No, but if you
on
go,
mine.
sorry, I think if I go on here, you guys can see the chats. Sorry.
It's popping up on the.
Yeah, I
screen,
know, but-
Yeah.
So here are the chats
Mhm.
and they're all related.
There we go.
Okay.
That's
They were not, they weren't showing up, Eric, sorry,
But
on,
it's because they're direct messages, so maybe. usually-
oh, they were direct messages,
usually
okay.
want them to be-
Maybe, sorry. I'll close that then, but basically, yeah, I'll read those afterwards, Eric, but there's no potential for me, if you're wanting to communicate directly with me, for me to be able to read those without the public seeing them.
All right, well, let's continue with our agenda.
So we were at standing committee updates.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you had just finished with, we went back to Canyon. And then I don't think there's anything from the personnel, finance, or operations committee, is there?
No,
Okay.
or, yeah,
Then we
legal.
move on to legal and the septic flood control and roads committee. And there's nothing from those committees.
No, I will say that we are trying to coordinate a meeting for the Mesa Septic Flood Control Roads Committee.
Okay.
But, and I think, I mean, Kevin and Kirsten are on that committee. Kevin's leaving shortly. I think we should also consider a revamping of some of our committees. I think we talked about this before, but to my mind, it doesn't quite make sense that the two folks that don't live up on the Mesa are the two folks that are on that committee. Because it really relates, it's essentially, we collect funds directly from residents that live on the gridded Mesa to fulfill or to conduct that work to improve drainage on the Mesa. And obviously, Kevin and Kirsten don't even, live on the gridded
Yeah.
Mesa.
Well, as I recall, generally the January meeting agenda usually has
Yeah,
committee assignments and officers, so
yes,
let's visit that at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
yeah, I think, that should be an in-depth conversation of, yeah.
Kevin won't be here, but we'll put him on any committee that we feel is appropriate. All right. Continue, these are action items.
Yep,
Let's see, special reports, action requested, none, budgetary financial, none. Legislative and governance resolutions, LCP proposed amendments for environmental hazards and formation of an ad hoc committee.
yeah, so if I can just present on this
Please.
really quickly, I already described this meeting that Andrew and Kevin and I attended. Again, this is basically this whole convoluted process, but essentially the coastal commission, we have these local coastal plans, right? These are like these large governing like standards for what work you can do in the coastal zone. They amended that whole report, what am I calling it? I don't know, like the kind of informational packet that helps you understand what that process looks like in 2008. And that was this really long drawn out process, and they could not get to agreement on a certain section of it, which is the environmental hazard section. And so they basically were like, it was such a contentious and long drawn out thing that they said, let's just like not even deal with that section right now, and we'll deal with all of the other portions of the local coastal plan. They then, what that meeting was all about was essentially they're revisiting, okay, we're ready to take on the amendments to the environmental hazard section. So when you look at the kinds of things that are in there, it's like provisions, for example, if say a county road is in disrepair, then the amendment would be to propose that folks would have to remove their structures where there's no longer, the ability to access that dwelling, as an example. Okay, so these are really pretty, you can understand why they had such contention around this, right? It's huge impacts of like sea level rise and, storm and fire events. And so some of the things they made a ton of progress on, like that were very contentious. So a lot of it's in that first round was, hey, we like as good citizens and with all of the fire danger that is present in California, we want to be able to remove, like clear to fire code standards. And there was all of this resistance from the Coastal Commission around like, no, you can't do that. You need permits to like, remove, like, I mean, it was kind of nightmarish, right? And so I think they really let up on that, probably because since that time, fires, it's clear that this is presenting such a hazard in the community, and so there was a lot of movement forward and inclusion of language that I think the residents in the coastal zone find much more palatable on that end. I would say there's still a lot of problematic language, and that's again where much of that meeting focused, was like, well, what is your commitment to maintain roads? Because if you say things like, okay, if we don't want to we don't maintain this road, then you need to remove your property. Well, that's very scary, because especially for our community out here, because the major thoroughfares to even access our community are all county roads. So I think that, anyway, so I don't know if Kevin and Andrew have further comments on the meeting itself, but basically what I would suggest, and this is kind of just like a timing issue, otherwise I would say we could just do it in our normal course of meetings. But effectively, what we need to do is go through this local hazard proposed amendment. It's, it's not crazy long, but we do need to go through it with a fine tooth comb. And when I say we, I mean the staff, basically the administrative staff and our chief operator, and really look at it in terms of how is this going to impact operations. I think we will also look at it from a standpoint of how is, because some of the codes relate to utilities, et cetera. And so some of it is more, impacts our community generally, and we'll also call out those things. But basically what the county has asked and what they said in that meeting is, hey, we want your comments by December 31, or, end of December. And so basically to meet that deadline, what I was proposing is essentially that a member of the board plus Jack as president of the board that would be available. So when we go through this and we draft something up that says, hey, these are all the issues that we have with your proposed amendments. We don't like this language around this impact of on utilities. We want you to, you know, we think that this will be really impactful on community members, whatever it is that we're calling out, that essentially there is a committee, an ad hoc committee that's been formed that will allow that Jack to effectively sign off as a representative of the board and have one board member provide input to that finalized letter. So that's kind of what I'm proposing so that we can meet this December deadline, because I do think it's important enough that we should, you know, really try to get our, you know, I mean, we can always provide, the process is very long and drawn out, but effectively what the county has told us is that, you know, potentially that information that you provide at this stage will be taken into account by the county, and they will essentially potentially, you know, consider it and sort of even possibly modify the language that they would then send up to the Coastal Commission. So anyways, that's kind of what I was proposing.
So rather than going before the whole board, before the letter got sent off,
Because
the board would
otherwise,
be authorizing the ad hoc committee to basically sign off on the proposals that the staff makes in terms of the response to the.
yes, exactly,
that makes
because
sense.
otherwise I'd have to call a special meeting, and I don't feel like I want to do that, especially given that it's right around the holidays and stuff.
All right, I'll do that. Would you also be on that ad hoc committee? Or you-
Yeah, I mean, we would, I think that the staff, like Belle and I, would take the brunt of it and really go through over the next week or so, like it will be one of our high priorities of things
Yeah.
we're doing. And basically, go through, draft up a letter. Then the idea is, once that letter's drafted, we would convene that committee, which would be you and some other board member. Essentially, you know, you guys can provide actual edits and, you know, approve effectively the finalized thing. You'd sign off as on the letter as a representative. I think it holds more weight, honestly, than if it's just coming from the BPUD, that it come from the board itself.
Okay. Anybody want to volunteer?
What's the time frame? You said December?
It's gotta be in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, but I don't think it will be a lot of time for you. It will basically be a reviewing of a letter that hopefully is pretty close to something that's
They're gonna do
And
the,
how many pages is the document that you're having to read?
it's a lot. I mean, it's, yeah.
well, they'll do the grunt work
Yeah.
essentially, and. then-
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want to be more involved in, you know, and again, I mean, we will come at it from a utility standpoint, like that is definitely, I don't want to spend tons of our time, basically. I mean, like I said, obviously, if we see things, I mean, and to be really, or just to kind of provide some context here, the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages has been very helpful in doing a lot of this legwork to kind of call things out. But they are not, those are individual residents, they're not a utility district. And so what I feel like I need to do as my, like, you know, as the general manager of the BPUD is really do my due diligence to go through and really look and see how these amendments would impact our operations. That's my primary objective, but of course, as representatives of the broader community and for your own self-interest, it makes sense to also, you know, call out those things. But a lot of people will be calling out those same things that you know, the things that I just talked about. What I think we really want to do in this letter is especially call out those things that will impact our operations.
Yeah,
Any
I'm not gonna be
volunteers?
After next weekend, so I can do it remotely.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issues.
I'm here until the 27th.
oh, well, that's long enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah,
Okay, good, let's do it.
okay. Okay, so I don't know how you guys form
Unless you want-
committees, do you?
I'm happy to read it.
Yeah. I'm happy to
I mean,
do
I
it.
feel like maybe we should all read it, but.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the problem, is if you guys all want to read it and have an impact
Then
on
it has
it,
to be
then it
board.
needs to be a special meeting. I'm fine to do that too. But basically
And the special
to,
meeting would just be us having read it and then.
yep, yeah, so I could
Just-
provide it with, to you guys couldn't provide comments beforehand, so it's not the most efficient. I would say that those kinds of, my personal opinion is to form a committee and have that committee draft stuff, because it's
Yeah.
kind of a bear to have to conform to the Brown
And
Act
the other
and
two
edit
of
a
us won't
document.
be around, So we would have to attend via Zoom and
You wouldn't be able to vote.
we
Can we,
would be able
can't
to.
do it digitally?
We can, no, we can't. I had the school board look into that extensively. I was like, can we just have a perpetual meeting? It's just like ongoing on Zoom forever.
I want that.
We did that for
Okay.
2 years.
I mean, I'm willing to do it because I deal with it in my. profession
I
so
would
much.
imagine that Andrew has more expertise in this area than I do.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Andrew, I think it would be helpful to have you on that committee because basically if we draft, I mean,
No,
just in terms of his
defer to
own.
his expertise.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's also outside of my realm of expertise, so it is helpful to have somebody who is knowledgeable around this. Basically, again, I mean, I want to be sensitive that it is the holidays and we're trying to just get this out. So my intention is that really what's coming before the committee is basically something for you guys to just like proof and edit.
Yeah.
But obviously, if there's, you want to be more involved and look at the, the source material more, that's like obviously up to you.
All right, so Andrew said
We
yes,
could
he'll
do
do
that
it.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
all right. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I
the
don't,
board could be provided a copy.
I guess I would say, I don't think it's inappropriate or against the Brown Act. For instance, if you guys are familiar with those amendments or particular clauses that you're like, I hate this, like if you just send me an email and say, hey, I just looked at something and I just want to make sure that you are aware of blah, 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 that's fine. So during this process, if over the next couple of weeks, you have an opportunity to look at any of that material and want to relay things to me, that's fine.
As part of this discussion, would you be able to publish the link to that?
To the materials? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that in the past, too, we have drafted letters.
Yeah, and just to be
And-
clear, I had all of that in our previous meeting when I presented on, because we had this item on last time. Yeah, sorry. So that might be, I don't know, Belle, if you can, sorry.
Last agenda.
There's a lot of links, though, I think if you could just send them along.
You want, I'll find it and send it over to everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Just put it in the chat, please, I guess is what people are asking.
Okay,
I think our ad hoc committee will wait for the staff to get its notes
No, don't put it in
together.
the chat.
Don't put it in
We
the
don't have
chat.
access. to
Not in the
chat.
chat.
The channel.
Oh, sorry, what do you want?
Then you-
Send it-
then
Oh,
you-
just send an email with the,
or you
yeah,
can,
yeah.
like, the
yeah,
PDF.
I'll email it to the board.
Because when you follow all these links, it takes you to these pages that say, oh, here's a PDF, here's another PDF, and it's not clear which PDF they're directing. us
You're
to.
talking about the county's
Yeah.
materials? Yeah, yeah.
I found it really unclear
Okay,
when we were on that meeting.
okay.
I don't know if you had the same experience.
I mean, I've gotten the material from other sources, so I probably didn't run into that. Like basically the Alliance was sharing materials that were helpful.
Anyway, I thought the ad hoc committee could then put together a draft letter and circulate it to the board, and the board would then only respond, each member responds only directly to Georgia with whatever comments, edits they would recommend.
I think that that's not allowed, but I mean, I'm fine. I think it's like a spoke wheel thing.
No,
But I
it's
think
only
that's
if we
within the
do a
board.
serial thing among ourselves, but because Jennifer used to do that. Jennifer would say, don't respond to each other, only respond to me.
But there is a thing called a spoke wheel.
Yeah,
And so it's like essentially like a bicycle where I'm that in that center thing and you
Yeah.
guys are all responding to me.
yeah,
And essentially, I don't think that that's allowed, but I mean, I'm fine
I
to,
think that's within the board though, like Andrew can't be the hub and we can't be the spokes around Andrew, but I think you're the general manager, so I think we're allowed to communicate one-on-one.
and
We're
one-on-one, I
not
think,
talking with each other about it, we're only
Right.
communicating with you, I think that's allowed.
I agree, I think that.
for a drafted letter though.
Yeah, for edits, in other words, yeah.
We've done that in the past, I believe.
Okay,
Anyway, yeah, double check.
I don't care. I mean, I would not, yeah, we don't need to double check. If you ask a lawyer something, they'll
Yeah.
give you an answer that you don't like to hear.
I think that we should.
We're
at
not
least
trying to
circulate
do
a
anything
draft
sneaky.
before we-
No,
All right,
All
let me
right.
go.
All right, well, so Andrew and I will do that with you,
okay,
okay,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
yeah. All right, let's keep going, that was item 19 then, right? Operational resolutions, okay, so now we're on item 20. This is resolution 733 for providing water data to the directors of the board, which we've discussed, and are we ready now to vote on this?
Pretty much. I did have one question.
Yeah.
Being a public entity,
Mhm.
and this is not for public information,
Yeah,
how does that work?
Sorry, say that again.
As we, anything that we're asking or being presented to us on this board is public information. And this is non-public
right.
Yeah.
information. How does that work?
Well, I think that that's part of, like, if you look at the beginning of this whole thing where we're kind of laying the groundwork for all of this, we kind of spell out, okay, yes, we're a public agency. But if you look at our Public Records Act request information, it explicitly says, hey, you members of the public can ask us all kinds of things, but we can't provide you detailed information on individual customers and say their water usage. However, there's this whole weird thing that we already do, right? Where somebody has a leak and they come before us and all of that, right? So we have essentially, internal policy that allows us in certain situations to make what is otherwise private information effectively public, right? Like, yes, I'm asking for leak relief. Okay, come before us. We're gonna discuss what your water usage was for the last 3 years or blah, 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 right? So essentially that's where we like laid out, hey, we do adhere to privacy laws that essentially say, hey, members of the public can't come to us. They can ask all kinds of things, right? Like if they say, tell us about everything related to your work on the LCP, obviously, as part of a Public Records Act request, we would provide them all of that. But they couldn't at the same time come to us and say, hey, I want to know how much water my neighbor is using, right? That's not obviously allowable. However, and like you'll see that basically what we're acknowledging at the beginning is, but we recognize that we do have internal policy that allows us or you as the board to essentially, when that, that same neighbor says, I'm requesting leak relief. Okay, obviously that's a voluntary request that they're engaging in, right? It's not like you're bringing them before the board or whatever, but basically with their kind of agreement, you bring them before the board and then discuss their water usage. So it's not like the same kind of restrictiveness of, say, medical records, right? Yeah, it's not HIPAA, and these are kind of self constraints that you guys have imposed, and then kind of loopholes you've written in your bylaws to allow you to kind of share this information publicly. So essentially all of that says, hey, we're going to be careful around this data, but we also recognize that we already have policy that allows us to share all of this information with board members. So then the second half is like, okay, so what does this look like if a board member comes to us and requests that data? Effectively, if you look at the resolution in its entirety, it essentially says, okay, we're not going to be very stringent on, the board member comes to us, essentially they're a board member. This is data that we can share with them as a board member. At the point that they disseminate that information, that's where all of the restrictions will really come in play and ensure that we're not, disseminating what effectively is like private water usage data, and especially where it can be, tied back to individuals. So, but yes, but I think the intention was hopefully you guys, because this came to you guys last month, if there's specific edits you guys want to do, I hope that we can make them here now. And then, have a finalized copy that you're approving tonight with whatever revisions.
I think it looks good. Is there anybody who wants to make any changes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I may. Last time, I don't recall who made the suggestion or question, but do we want to spell out the format of the data? Like, is it a PDF, a spreadsheet, an email? Is there any kind of definition of the info? Yeah, I don't,
We talked about whether we wanted it,
I mean, electronically.
yeah, electronically versus.
Yeah, I mean-
Versus on paper in the office versus
Yeah,
wherever you're
yeah.
sitting. We just, we didn't decide.
it might have been you that brought that up.
I think it was kind of
wrote it
a
down.
bigger conversation.
I think, so I talked about this, I basically said you guys can influence the stringency of the actual data itself, right? So is like, are you guys gonna want to really secure that data so that effectively the way in which the board member who's requesting access is basically only interacting with it in the building? And, you know, essentially on a computer that we've provided to them. That would be like highly stringent, kind of secure data. Effectively, oh, no, we're passing to you a paper copy and you need to return the paper copy. That's kind of like next level. Anyways, I kind of was anticipating if you guys had those kinds of constraints you wanted to impose on the resolution, you would do that here in this copy.
I think the language is pretty good because it gives you discretion depending on how much data there is and how you want to share it. It just says appropriate access controls and security measures.
So
Secure,
who's-
it's only accessible to the board member.
I like that.
And I
Who's,
think that's good because it gives you, you know,
who's choosing though?
well, I think
The
it's,
general manager?
Yeah.
Has that discretion?
yes. Right, it can't be the board member because the board member is the one seeking the information,
Right,
so
right.
someone is the overseer.
Is
So
that
the-
spelled out?
I don't
Or is that
personally see a
implied?
need for restrictions on the type or format that's given to board members.
No,
I mean, these aren't CIA secrets we're talking about here. This is, you know, this, it's starting to feel like it, you know, this is to do the job that we were elected to do, I feel like, and it's,
Mhm.
it is confidential, you know, sensitive information somewhat, names and addresses and water usage, but, yeah, I'm okay with it as written. I just had a couple of quick questions about, some of the language, but we should continue talking about that. if you
well,
guys want to.
we're doing that now. So what do you think about paragraph 5 that says implement appropriate access controls and security measures?
Yeah, and I think that's a little vague, so, maybe at the discretion of the general manager. But yeah, I find that to be a little vague.
Okay, so what would you do to make it more specific?
Have that range of the discretion of the general manager.
You could change the word, instead of saying the BPUD shall implement, you could say the general manager shall implement. I mean, doesn't change anything substantively, it's just identifies who's in charge of the security.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's better to identify who's in charge than these, you know, the BPUD, because then,
Me too.
Definitely.
yeah.
So what if we did that, if we changed strike on paragraph 5, the BPUD, and insert instead the general manager?
But I still think it's vague. What are the appropriate access controls and security measures? What are we talking about here? And that
Well,
seems like a wide range.
Yeah, it is, but I think it's almost better to give the general manager that kind of latitude,
Okay,
because there may be some, as soon as you try to define stuff, something's gonna come up, it's just outside that definition, you
yeah,
know?
that's fine. Okay. I guess I'm so confused about how a board member would request and be granted this information based on the language in this resolution. I'm still confused. If I need to come, let's say I wanted to request this information, would I need to come before the board requesting it for a specific?
No, that's the whole
Okay.
idea
Yeah.
is that, I mean, hopefully, if you need to, if it needs to be clearer, just provide whatever language you think makes it
Well,
clear, but
because-
the intention is that, Kevin, you'd be able to come to us and we basically don't even necessarily ask you, hey, Kevin, what do you want to do with this data? You just
Yeah.
say, hey, I want water customer data from X point to X point or whatever you ask for. And essentially we say, okay. And then the idea is that you go and crunch those numbers however you want. And then, of course, if you guys want to put further restrictions, oh, he can only look at that data in the office or whatever, then you can put that kind of provision on it. But his ability to access the data, as you guys specify, is not restricted by us as a staff. Then effectively, Kevin, you're like, okay, I'm ready to present this. I was looking at, water in short-term rentals or whatever it was that you did in your little data crunching, not little data crunching, very profound, important data crunching. And so you come back to the board and you say, hey guys, this is what I want to report out on. I've done something. You're not like presenting that data. You're essentially coming before the board at a given meeting to say, do I have permission to disseminate this data? And then the idea is, okay, and then you'd go another month and basically you'd put it on for the next agenda or the next meeting or whatever.
Okay, I think I was confused about language in item or number 3. It says access to sensitive personal data shall be restricted, ... authorized by the board at a publicly held meeting. So I guess, is this the publicly held meeting that we are authorizing this type of?
I think, I don't know if it's the sensitive personal data. Like if that's like an addition beyond, let's say, I don't know. I have no idea I think that's confusing.
Yeah,
So, okay, so what is sensitive personal data? Is that?
Because I think that's, because access to customer water use data upon request, an individual board member staff shall share with the requesting board member personally identifiable, including the customer's name, address. Any board member will be granted access to non-redacted customer, That's basically what we were talking about. Types of data accessible. I don't know. I think that basically, what we were thinking here is like, okay, let's say there's something else that's beyond address, name, and like if and we don't really even have that data. So I'm not really sure, if 3 ever is just effectively moot, because you're like, I want to know who's on dialysis. And we're like, sorry, Kevin, we can't help you with that.
I think it was just that what we pulled it from was one of the kind of paragraphs that was in the type of information that we gathered. So if it's not germane to us, then there's no reason to keep it in there.
Well, I think, one piece of information would be, do they pay their bills on time?
Yeah.
That
okay.
type, that's,
Okay, yeah, financial information, yeah.
yeah, exactly,
sure.
which is
Yeah.
perhaps unnecessary.
Yeah, I think it makes
Okay.
sense to maybe keep it in there because we might not know exactly what you're doing. And then when you're venturing outside of, name, address
Yeah.
and water usage, like this resolution is really only speaking to that. And if you're getting to these more personal things, then essentially, yeah, you need to come to the board and get permission for broader
That sounds
things.
good. I hadn't made the distinction between customer water use data and number 1 and sensitive personal data. I didn't
Well,
real- I didn't realize
maybe
you were
we
talking
should
about
just be explicit and say, not address, just actually spell
Yeah.
that out, because I do think even me rereading it here, I was like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, just beyond name, address, water usage data. I think That would help to define it.
Yeah, I think that's important to put in.
so do you have a proposed change in any language, or are you okay with the? language?
Well, I just not having defined what sensitive personal data is makes it confusing, so. Yeah, I just,
Okay, here's an example where somebody has a water meter and we happen to know that they use a lot because they have a large number of people living in that household.
Mhm.
That's personal data.
Yeah.
that we may know because they talked to us about it.
sure, okay, I think we just leave it as it is now.
Okay,
No, that's good. It just wasn't clear to me in my initial read through that sensitive personal data was
different than.
beyond what I was originally asking for.
But wait, sorry, I thought we were proposing that access to sensitive personal data, and then I would put in parentheses beyond name, address, and water use data.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Close
Okay.
parentheses,
Yeah,
shall be restricted unless explicitly.
Okay,
Okay,
I think it's that.
Why does it say the requester's own household? I can't imagine why anybody else in the requester's household would need any of this information.
Well, that's why I'm saying this is where it could get a bit tricky. Well, let's say like, is the water house, right? So they had a water meter with a number of tenants
Yeah.
in there, and so I could imagine. If you wouldn't want one of the tenants having that information. That the landlord or whoever owns it and pays the water meter, because, the other tenant is using most of the water, right? I'm just trying to think of an example of what would be.
I think that was there, that requester's own household was there because that's if I come to you and say, I would like to have my water data, I can get my own information. I believe that's how I read it. That the requester, the person who's asking for the information, if it's their data, they can request it.
Yeah.
That's what I read it too.
Oh, see, I read this as the requester being the board member
Yeah.
who was requesting the information.
This was pulled from our existing
Uh-huh.
like policy.
But this resolution is only regarding directors asking for water
That's
data.
right.
Mhm.
Right. So,
Board members
so
shall
it wouldn't
not
apply to
disclose
any- with anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here it says under BPUD Public Records Act procedures. So part of those Public Records Act procedures are that we can't give that information out to other people except for
yeah.
the person whose house it is.
Yeah, this is like the context that I was talking about at the beginning, basically saying, hey, we don't share this data just with the public unless the public is you asking about your own water usage.
Right,
Well,
right.
then I think you need to be more specific about the word requesters.
What if we put it all in
Water
quotes?
meters.
Because essentially what we're doing is we're citing our own Public Records Act request, and so maybe we should just, if we put it in quotes, then it's more clear that we're actually quoting our own policy, and then we could even put like resolution, blah, 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 or no, I guess that's just on our board, on our website, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to make it clearer that we're referring to our own records, act
Mhm.
procedures document, basically.
What if you just stopped at this resolution shall abide by the legal and ethical obligations of board members? Or even the BPUD in general, including board members regarding data privacy, period, and take out the following sentence.
Sorry, I lost.
On number
I'm not sure.
on four,
Okay,
there's 3 sentences in
Right.
4.
yeah,
I think that you could take out the 3rd sentence.
starting with board members.
Yeah,
Every member of the public. Because of the requesters. Oh, no, I see, because the requests are referring to the person.
Got it. We were looking at the requester, I was looking up above.
Yeah.
There's
We were
another
looking at the
requester.
whereas, yeah.
Well, why not just say to any member of the public, full stop? Why do we have to say except for the requesters?
Yeah,
because the board member wouldn't be talking directly to anybody. But if somebody wanted their own water information, that needs to go through the office, not the
Yeah.
board.
Right.
Yeah, well, and it would be kind of amazing if you guys knew everybody's water usage.
so maybe we put a period after the word public and delete
Yeah.
except for the requester's own household.
I think so.
Okay,
Sorry, say, Belle, are you capturing?
Yeah, I got that.
yeah, so you're going to the end of paragraph 4 and you're putting a period after the word public and deleting. From
Yeah.
except for the requester's own household, that deleted.
Yeah, the last 6 words or whatever that
Right,
is.
Yeah.
correct, right.
Okay, and then just because this is what I was getting confused by, if you go to the 4th whereas, there's also a mention of requester's own household. And this is what I was talking about, where we're essentially, we're quoting our own Public Records Act procedure. And so we probably need to clarify, it might be similarly confusing.
Well, if we're quitting it, we need to quit it. verbatim.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You want to
It is
call it the
confusing.
the customer's own household as opposed to requester, so.
For
we're
the
not
owner of the
confusing-
water meter.
Yeah, customers is better than
Okay,
requesters.
change it to customer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because it's the person who's requesting the Public Records Act.
Right, okay. Okay, any, Kevin, you were going through it, any other changes or?
Not for me, I mean, I guess I just want to clarify also something, Georgia, that you said earlier. I think I understood. So basically, BPUD has authority. If I were to come to you now, Georgia, and say, I would like customer water use data because I want to do this and that. You already have the authority to do that and it's legal, right? You're just sort of codifying this and putting some restrictions and guardrails in place. right?
Exactly. I
Is
think that the whole, I mean, just to let you guys understand, because we were just basically like, we wanted to provide some framework at the beginning that says, hey, we effectively already do this in select scenarios. This isn't like, to your point, this isn't like HIPAA incredibly protective data. We have different scenarios where we bring people before the board and not only share obviously that information with you guys, but obviously you even then share that information with the public. So we're essentially setting the framework for this, you know, this is not us completely going outside of our normal procedures.
Yeah, but I think it's different. I think there's a essential difference if somebody comes to us
Mm-hmm.
and to ask for, you know, a reduction in their water bill.
Mm-hmm.
There's an implied voluntary consent
Mm-hmm.
of sharing their private information. It's not like you're bringing those
Yes,
people up.
But the other example is an LWUP and there, it's not voluntary. And essentially we would share that information with you guys as well, right? If, I mean, we don't ever really get to that point, right? But there is this whole
That's true.
point where you go up these
Right,
different,
if they choose to get a permit, they are again opening themselves up to having their information be
well, a
public.
permit meaning a meter?
A
You're
building-
saying-
building permit.
a building.
Oh, a
permit, which is where
building.
you get a-
No, but I mean, people buy a house and it's on a limited water use permit and they haven't, you know, at the point that they're like basically grandfathered in with an LWUP. They haven't like really consented to it, right? And they're not doing anything extra. And then effectively, if they go over their water use permit, we, I'm saying, sorry, not the engagement of the LWUP, the actual, violation of the LWUP brings them, you know, it's again, I don't think we
Right,
ever
it brings
get
them
to
into
that,
the
but they,
public eye, yeah.
if they keep going, then essentially we bring them before the board.
Mhm.
But when they have a violation, they have 30 days to bring it under. And
Yeah.
within that information about when they're bringing it under, if they don't bring it under, it says they will come before the board. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't say we will also provide your water use information when you come before the board, but it's different than somebody just coming here and having their water usage shared without any infraction, I guess.
Right, they
In
have
my
a chance
opinion.
to not have it come before the board if they can pull it together.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Right. And-
But I mean, then the intention here is never, I mean, that's why we have this whole other thing, right? This is effectively sharing that data with a privileged member, a board member.
Yeah.
And then essentially the point, like we have essentially the whole second part is you can't just
Yeah, number
bring,
6 is like, we have to vote on it if you disseminate.
yes.
So it's like completely protected.
And even
Yeah.
then, I think that we said things like it needs to be anonymized, like we already, you know, you guys would have to go out of your way to essentially be like, okay, the data that is all focused on, you know, address 35. Like that's not the intention here, right? The idea is that you would be looking at some aggregated data set to be making some conclusions about water use or something. Anyway.
Are there any other changes? Kristen, do you have anything that you would change? Okay, Andrew?
No, I don't.
Trace, do you have any further? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I have in my notes before we take the vote. On the fourth whereas, we're gonna change the last sentence instead of saying the requester's own household, we're gonna say the customer's own household. Under number 3, access to sensitive personal data. We're going to insert beyond the name and address of the customer,
And water use.
And water.
Well, use shall be inserted, shall be restricted, so those words are gonna be inserted there. And under number 4, we're gonna put a period at the end of the word public and delete the balance of that last sentence. And under number 5, we're gonna change the BPUD shall implement, instead it's gonna say the general manager shall implement. Are we all in agreement that those are the changes we've agreed to?
Yes.
Yeah, the B% shall, I just was, when we were making that general manager one, I think that we should just make sure there's not other sites where we say the same thing.
The only other one that I thought, we might want to change because of that change would be the one where it says, under number 1, upon the request of an individual board member, staff shall share with the requesting board member. You think we should just say the general manager?
Yes, I think that makes, it's more consistent.
And that way it restricts exactly who is, the person who's doing that.
Yes, and then I would say also 6, I think,
Yeah,
is
six should say general manager.
the general manager.
Okay.
All right, got it.
Got those, so we're adding the word general manager instead of BPUD in 6.
Mhm.
And we're adding general manager rather than staff
Violation.
in the first sentence of number 1. So. Okay, and it kind of duplicates the now therefore, because once again, it says the general manager is authorized to implement, et cetera. So that makes it more consistent.
Okay,
Okay, well, if we're all in agreement on the changes, then can I get a motion to approve resolution 733 as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0.
No,
All right.
I'm opposed.
Oh, you did?
I'm opposed.
Oh, you are?
No, yes.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I didn't
Sorry.
hear. Okay, 4 ayes and 1 nay. Okay, let's go on to item 21. Are we doing anything on this one? It's not bold. Jorge's not here.
no, it's been, yeah, he's not prepared.
Okay. Item 22, resolution 734. For hiring committee makeup. This is pretty straightforward.
I think it was the Grace last meeting, I don't know, a couple meetings ago or whenever it was, we looked at it last, just wanted to read through it because
Oh,
she
okay.
hadn't yet.
Have it go through the personnel committee.
Yeah,
Right. So exhibit A has an outline of each of the potential positions and the way the person to fill that would be chosen and the committee makeup. So thought it looked okay. Anybody have any further comments?
One,
Sure.
do we need to change it is hereby certified that this resolution was duly introduced and adopted, et cetera, the 16th day of October,
Oh,
2024?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Sorry.
So it's gonna be the 11th day of December. Okay, and other than that, what do you think, Grace? As you and I have been in the personnel committee for a long time, so you okay with these?
Yeah, I
changes?
thought it looked good.
Okay,
It sounded to me.
all right, then can I get a motion for resolution 734?
I would say move.
Thank you.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You voted aye, yeah.
I voted aye.
All right, that takes us to item 23. Regular board meeting minutes of October the 16th. Anybody have any changes or corrections?
None for me.
Okay. Can we get a motion then to approve the minutes of the October 16th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, somebody seconded?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. And the minutes of the November 20th? I don't know.
Wait,
We don't have them, do we?
I have it.
Oh, here they are. I got them.
Yeah, what's up?
Can I go back to the 16?
Sure.
Under The ad hoc committee meeting updates under January 15th, it says hold hearing for rate increases, allowed public protest. Should it be public comment? Or is protest the correct word?
No, it's protest, but I don't. Recology has requested one-time rate. Yeah, this is, yeah,
Is that
yeah,
boilerplate language?
yeah, that's the public protest for those hearings.
Okay. But if they like it.
Fully in support.
Yeah,
I mean, they sent me this nice Christmas card. I love it.
oh, yeah, when you find it. Okay, the minutes of the November 20th meeting, and any changes or corrections? If not, can I get a motion to approve them?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did ask Annie to add a little more info in there for Kirsten and Grace's request from last time, so
Thank you.
hopefully it
Okay,
feels like a
yeah.
little bit more info. I know it's
Yeah.
not Jennifer meeting minutes, but
Yeah, like
Um,
more info.
Okay, so now we get to the end, meeting closing, materials to be signed by board members. And
We have warrants too.
the warrants have been signed. Future agenda items. I think we talked about that resolution that we're gonna put on to be supportive of the either the resolution, what are we doing? Were we supporting the bill passed by the legislature, or are we supporting in more general way the
I think,
efforts of the school district?
well, they fortunately have their meeting a week and a day before ours. So then I'll see what they've actually even adopted, not even the draft. At which point I will look at it and I'll modify it the way that I think makes sense for obviously, we're not a school, so there might be language that needs to change. And then I'll essentially share that as an item for that agenda item on the Friday so that you guys have plenty of time to look at it
Good,
before the meeting.
okay, that's good. Were there any other things we wanted to put on the next agenda? I can't think of. All right, then, the next meeting date. What? January.
No, we have to approve the warrants.
No, yeah.
I don't see it on the,
Yeah, it's number.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed the warrant.
25.
Oh, man, how can we pay the bills? All right, going back to item 25, which I skipped over. We need a motion to approve the warrants, that's a big number, huh? Thanks to Piazza Construction.
Yeah, we should send them a Christmas gift.
We should send us a Christmas gift.
Some free payment.
Boy, really?
Start our own.
So just to
Yeah,
point out, that's the
it's-
tank. The last item there is the tank site pipeline replacement project.
Okay.
So that's not like emergency repair, that is stuff we've budgeted for and
Yeah,
Okay, good,
that's good to see those capital improvement projects happening.
yes,
yeah. And Mr. Raccoon got paid?
yes.
That's cute. Okay.
And I noticed there's no big PG&E bill. Is that because the solar array is back up and running, or is that just because we haven't got the bill yet?
No.
I in the checks that you guys are signing that I left on the desk in front of you there's a PG&E bill, but it's like $2,000 or something. That's generally what they are right now.
Hopefully next month we'll get a break.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the true ups it's when we get those true up bills at the in July or August is when it's huge.
the biggie.
So the 278,000 cash general fund, is that just like an end of year expenditure?
That was mostly to cover the tank site pipeline replacement project, and then we also moved over some emergency just money that we spent on emergency projects.
Yeah, that's basically us paying a check to ourselves. That's just us moving money. It's not,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, sorry about that. Moving on, next meeting date. What do you got? Got the calendar there?
yeah, it's just, it is, sorry. the
January
15th of January.
15th, yeah.
January 15th. All righty.
I feel like it should be later.
I know, but we have so much time between this meeting and that. meeting.
Yeah,
Yes, right.
all right, unless there's anything else, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting.
Okay, and then we have, oh, sorry, the things to sign. Let's just make sure we don't forget those signs.
That's that. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thanks all.
I think we all are this